Yeah, mute Tarke, can still hear Raiz. Okay, that should be fine. In that case. Hey guys, Tarke here, and today we're going to be talking all about Heist, our league starters, our reactions to the patch notes and everything. So to start us off, Raiz, what have you been up to? What are you playing in Heist?
I like how you said we're going to talk about Heist. Well, in all reality, it's probably going to be like a 1-hour harvest conversation again.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I spent a long time trying to decide on a build for Heist. And I have concluded that I, in fact, do not know what to play. Yep. And also, I haven't seen the gem info yet. So that's kind of where it all falls apart. The problem is that I want to do the Awakener race stuff, but a certain build didn't get nerfed, so everybody wants to play that build, but then everybody dies on that build, and that build being Essence Drain, and I don't want to play Essence Drain again, even though I used to like it, but then I played it a little bit too much, probably. And so now, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards some sort of Chieftain Armageddon brand with discharge single target situation, but it's got some problems. Like you got to level fast, and most likely the Awakener race. So to anybody that doesn't know, there's going to be a race to Awakener and a bunch of other bosses, and the times that people are getting are essentially like a single session. You know, we're talking between like 20 and 30 hours. So most likely you're going to have to sit through like a single session if you really want to have a shot at like the top 15, I think, for Awakener specifically gets paid out. And yeah, you take a long time to level with a Marauder. Marauder's got some problems, so that's kind of holding me back. But if that isn't that big of a deal, then yeah, I think that might be it.
You think we're going to see all 15 within the first like 20 to 30 hours? I was thinking 15 in like the first 2 days.
Yeah,
maybe even a little longer.
That's a lot more realistic, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
I think so. There's probably going to be like one turbo fast person, maybe two who are going to have like a shot, and then I'm assuming there's going to be a big gap. At least in the
I think
past,
there'll be a
that's
lot of
usually
death.
how these went. Yeah. And especially if people are playing Essence Drain, because you have to play hybrid Essence Drain because CI just takes too long to switch with a harvest and all this sort of stuff. And even the Awakener fight is kind of tricky. You have to remember that at this point, everybody's going to be tired and you have to fight Awakener 8. And you were focused, like really focused for a really long amount of time. So to have a build that deals well with Awakener is, in my opinion, a big upside. Because I do anticipate that a lot of people are just going to straight up die to it.
If you, before we move on to everyone else, if you had to like predict who that super zoom person would be, who would you say?
I would say Ventura. I think Ventura is peaking hard as fuck. He keeps having internet problems and dying to disconnects and stuff, and it's denied him like top three placements in a row pretty much now in the recent events. But the way he plays, I think, yeah, I think he really does really well. There are some other players, but I think they get held up by their build choices. Ventura is not one of those, so yeah, it's a controversial pick, but I think he has a really good shot if everything goes correctly.
What's
The problem
his
is that
main
if you're
skill
playing
these
Essence
days?
Drain,
Sorry.
then yeah. Oh, he's an Essence Drain guy. I don't know if he's going to be playing Essence Drain this time around, but yeah.
He's doing some BFBB on Inquisitor for a while. I don't know if he decided not to do that.
BFBB?
Bladefall.
Bladefall.
Oh, Blade Blast. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
there's a lot of blasters out there on Inquisitor and Assassins.
Oh, that's what people are doing. Yeah, I've been sick, so
well,
I haven't
one
been
of the
like
things outside of ED. Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say like Blade Storm or something, because I miss Sunder Ventura. Give me that melee.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's too slow.
Yeah. Well, one of my other picks was from the steel skills. I think the Lancing Steel, even though people are giving a lot of shit, I think Lancing Steel could be a serious contender. Any of the steel skills could be, but then I think Lancing Steel is going to be extra nice. People are really hating on it, but
I think your mapping is going to be off. I think you're going to be slow to clear maps.
Why?
Because it just doesn't have good mechanics to clear maps. It's like trying to main skill Barrage.
No, it's like trying to main skill Winter Orb, but better.
You comparing Lancing Steel to Winter Orb?
How is a Gladiator with Lancing Steel different from Winter Orb? It has more AoE. Sure, I agree with you.
I'm not gonna step into
I
this.
mean,
You're getting a lot of
I
question
don't
marks
know,
in
dude.
chat. You might want to elaborate on that a little bit.
I mean, you.
I don't think it's bad. I don't know.
I don't know who's
I'm
getting
not
the
sold on the
question marks.
Lancing. I think Lancing can be good later on, but I don't know. I don't see it as a
It makes
the
sense to
speedy
me. It's
version.
a nice two-hander. You go hella fast. You're playing a Gladiator. For bossing, you switch to a champion, which many people have proven to be really effective for these sort of formats. It's a ton of damage. I don't see a problem. I'm not saying that it's necessarily better than the
That's
other
a lot of
skills because
regret
we still have
orbs.
to wait. No. How is that a lot? It's like the same thing. And I mean, people are going to be killing it at like 95, at the earliest 94, but that would be insane. So like 95, 96, you're going to have regret orbs.
Hmm.
I guess you'll have enough.
What about you, Niggy? What's your racing setup going to be?
I'd suggest going somewhere else because Discord is mega roboting for me right now. I don't know if I'm coming through clearly, but you guys all sound like
You are.
robots.
Oh, we all sound fine as far as I'm concerned. I think it's just you.
Maybe switch server before.
I'll
it's messed
I'll
up for
quickly
him.
switch our servers
Yeah, it's
around.
in
Give me one
Europe.
sec. F over.
Okay, I think.
No. Wait 1 second. I'm gonna put us
okay, we're
into
just gonna wait.
US. Yeah, 1 sec. Okay.
There we go.
There you go. Right, go on, Niggy.
Ziggy
Ziggy.
vanished.
He'll be fine. He'll get there in a minute. Takes him a while.
Okay.
He's from far away.
Right. So I think I'm going to be blasting. I think hex blasting, doom blasting, blasting. I still don't know how, but I'll be.
Does it? Okay, so I haven't seen the gems, but I've seen everything else in the patch notes, and then like in the patch notes is the weirdest thing ever because it's like you get this doom and doom this and doom that, and you blast this, and they
Yes.
never said what it does. Did they finally explain like what the freaking
Well,
core?
okay, so doom is just something that is tied to the hexes. So whenever you cast a hex, if you manually cast it, it gains 10 doom static over time, and you can increase that rate through like passives. Okay, so you get like 25 through the skill tree. So you get 25 doom per second. The base cap of doom is 30. You can increase that to 40 on the skill tree. And then the skills that interact with doom will then consume the doom that's on the target and the hex to do increased or more damage. So the hex blast will do, if you have 40, so it's basically it's what is it, times 10 the doom. So if you have 40 doom on the target, it's 400% more damage.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so you do a single hit of times 5 damage per stack of doom if it gets all the way up. So if you have 2 curses, you can do it twice, and then you have to reapply the curses, or you can like cycle them. So you're like hexed and doom, then hexed and doom, or hex blast.
What about the curse effect?
So the doom
1%,
curse effect
right?
is basically 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So one doom is 1 curse effect. Yes. So it's like stacking up curse effect and the doom over time, and then you blast it.
So, did you say that you can have like multiple curses and?
Yes, they all have their own doom.
So the hex blast doesn't consume every hex on the enemy.
No, the highest one.
Yeah, just one.
So it'll target smartly. So it'll just the highest doom available. It'll take and consume.
Oh, interesting.
It's pretty. It's like there's a lot of like there's a lot of new mechanics, and they're kind of like convoluted because it's not explained that well. But there's so many ways you can interact. Another thing is that the lowest resist on the target for Hex Blast will be the resist that is going to be chosen to as the mitigation for it. So let's say that you have like EE. Let's say you have like some flat fire damage on there, right? So you EE cold and lightning, then you put like frost bomb down, and you have the cold curse. All that will lower the cold res. So now you're maybe like -50 or like from -50 to -100, and that'll be chosen as the skill to resist versus the chaos damage. So the chaos damage does damage against the cold res and not the chaos res on top.
But it's still chaos damage.
Yeah.
It's still chaos damage. So you can wither as well. So you wither it up, lower the resist by like down to -100, and then you blast them. That's like the idea. And it can shock, chill, and freeze. Oh, not chill, shock, freeze, and ignite.
Before you go on, Nugi, Octavian, quickly tell Raiz what we were talking about yesterday, which will make Raiz very happy.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, Hexblast is, because of what Nugi just said, that it can apply elements of any type. That means you could do Archmage Hexblast and do Ignite off of lightning damage without needing a Stormfire.
That does make sense. Yes. And you said that is it a global multiplier?
You
receive...
yeah. Well, yeah, it's so any additive damage added to the skill will all be multiplied.
Well, I guess I'm not playing a chieftain after all. I mean, we'll see, but yeah. I need to take a firm look at this newly found information. Wait, so okay, one final question. So I haven't caught up. What's up with Bane? Did they do anything to like salvage it or?
Bane is a
It's
hex
gone.
now, right? So it benefits from the hex stuff on the tree, but it won't benefit from like +2 curse, corruptions. And does it work with Vixens? I don't know if it does anymore.
I have not been able to find confirmation on that.
Who cares? It's fucking gone. It's dead. You can't help that.
The thing is, like all the Bane builds generally, like they all had Blasphemy as well. Like the general like Bane setups. So Blasphemy kind of got screwed on this as well, because all the new curses are balanced around having the Doom mechanic, and it doesn't get the Doom mechanic when you Blasphemy it. So they're just all weaker now.
Oh right.
Well,
not even through the notable. Or
They
not
didn't.
notable.
They didn't nerf existing curse numbers. They just added Doom on top of it.
No, they did.
They did. Like Despair is worse.
They removed so in Feeble they removed all the crit stuff. And the
but
accuracy.
that isn't added back with Doom. That's just a nerf to Enfeeble, right?
Yeah.
But
Like,
like
I don't...
Despair is numerically worse now, isn't it?
Isn't it the same?
Let me
I think
look it up.
Despair is the same.
I think
Because I thought that they essentially just like they nerfed Enfeeble specifically because they thought it was too strong defensively, which fair. But I thought like something like Flammability has the same res shred going forwards for Blasphemy. It's just you can also now cast it for more. So there's opportunity cost using Blasphemy, but it didn't actually like get lower than previous leagues.
So like defensive curses just look kind of weak unless you, at least for bossing. For bossing, the defensive curses just kind of look weaker, unless you self-cast them. But then, so if you self-cast them, you have someone just self-casting and you're not consuming them, they get a little better, yeah?
I mean, particularly with how strong for bossing marks seem to be, because they don't go through enemy curse resistance. For builds that can take advantage of marks well, I think marks are
but marks
really,
don't get
really
Doom.
bossing.
So marks is different.
I don't think they need the Doom though, because they just ignore curse res. Yeah.
No, they're insane.
They nerfed Ignite builds. I just realized because they moved Whispers of Doom to where you can't pick it up anymore as an Ignite build, and every build had it because you wouldn't pass through the block. I mean, you can, but it's like
it's pretty out of the way.
Way too many points to justify it. Yeah.
No, you just go Hexblast Trickster.
Oh right. Well, I shouldn't say Ignite builds apparently because it's an entirely new concept now.
Yeah, you can just ignite with your Chaos and Lightning Blast.
True, it does sound good. The only thing that I'm worried about in these sort of mechanics is like you have to. It's such a big difference. It's kind of how mana builds would run into the same problem where they were either kind of weak because they were balanced around the top end, and the top end would get so extreme prior to Archmage. And this is the same thing where like you either have 2 curses or you have 7, and it's like how do we balance this? Like, where's the middle ground? Because obviously the top end of the curses, I don't know if you can get 7. It's a lot of curses anyway that you can get. Like that would be pretty extreme, and since it's all global numbers, we'll see. I have to take a look at it. Sounds really interesting though. Very cool.
Before we move on, just out of interest, what ascendancies have you been looking at? Because Hexblast seems a bit weird when it comes to picking ascendancies.
Why would you ask me that question? Okay, I've been looking at Hierophant, Occultist, Trickster, Assassin, Pathfinder, mainly. Maybe Chieftain and Ascendant,
Everything.
and maybe
I think you missed out a couple. Champion, Duelist, Juggernaut.
Necromancer.
He hasn't said Raider yet. We're good.
No, I mean Pathfinder can do like Poison Prolive, and Trickster can do Ignite, and Occultist can kind of just do like more curse stuff plus Profane Bloom and like crit, and Assassin is full crit, and then there's like Archmage stuff, and yeah. I don't know, dude.
How do you feel
Really
about the
hard to
4%
choose.
base crit?
It would be pretty insane if it had more.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you this. I think it's fine. Well, I think mapping is gonna maybe feel a little weird because it's gonna be inconsistent with your crits, but it's less important. Like, you can like miss a crit and still clear fine. So, and on the boss, you just slap on Assassin's Mark and you have all this curse effect, and it's just a massive increase. So it's easy to keep up power charges, and it's really good for like you get the flat crit chance and the crit multi off the Assassin's Mark, and you just blast them.
Yeah, and the Hexblast doesn't consume non-hexes,
Exactly.
so the Assassin's Mark will stick around even as your hexes get consumed.
Yeah, so it works really well in that setup.
Okay. What about you, Ziggy? You doing any Raider Hexblast or?
Well, now since I'm going last, I shot myself in the foot because yes, I'm also going to probably play Hexblast. Originally, I saw the impending doom support thing in the video, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a curse build. And then I was like, I saw the Firestorm video. I'm going to play Firestorm. I always wanted Firestorm to get some love. I always loved the old school Firestorm, but it was just, never quite there. So just had kind of set it on the back shelf for a long time. Saw that they turned it into a big fucking meteor. And I'm like, oh my God, all my dreams have come true. GGG, you finally did it. We're going to call down meteors to the earth, live out my power fantasies, my Timmy fantasies. And then I read the about notes. How? It doesn't make any sense. The numbers on it are so bad. And I tried to justify it as much as possible too. I was like watching the footage and I was like calculating how many firestorms are going to hit the boss if you're like targeting it perfectly and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, even if there are like 4 of them hitting, it's only just barely kind of breaking even with, fireball as a baseline. I'm better off just shooting a single fireball instead of calling a meteor down on the boss. So yeah, I'm going back to my curse idea of the Hexblast action. It's just such an interesting skill, like all elements and the fact that you can just like put elemental equilibrium on it with a bit of added damage to lower the resistance against chaos. So you can build it for potentially hits, you can build it for ignites. I was thinking of looking kind of more towards the ignite side of things, and then I can pretend it's a meteor. Since it kind of looks like a bit like an orbital laser, I'll just pretend it's a meteor. Maybe they'll give you a meteor skin for it. So that's my plan, and I think I'm gonna play around with like a bit of a firewall build as well because that actually looks pretty damn strong. I'll be making some sort of easy build to play on a laptop for Amy because she's playing remotely at the moment from Victoria. So I might look at doing a bit of a firewall build because its damage is actually like really good.
Yeah.
For the damage over time thing, you can probably literally just use a projectile to apply the damage around, and it would probably be enough. So. I think you're doing something like that, aren't you, Tarke?
Yeah, so pure Flamewall numbers, like if you add up the base burn and the secondary burn, is roughly 300 higher than Caustic Arrow, which is the single largest dot in the game. So Flamewall is the highest dot in PoE, which is kind of insane. I was also originally Team Firestorm, and I'm like, dude, Firestorm's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. Saw the numbers, I'm like, Firestorm's gonna be so... I really hope that maybe there's something and we're all sleeping on it and it turns out to actually not be complete trash. And I know that Raiz said that it might not be complete.
You think it's trash?
It's average at best. Like,
you guys are living in the past. When was the last time you played Firestorm? Firestorm got like freaking 300% more damage, dude, over the last like year. It's so much better. The problem was mana cost, which hasn't changed, but you don't have to spam it nearly as much. And you can still control the AoE. And now you have like more tools to control the AoE. I think it's really lame that the meteor is the way it is, but I definitely do not think that this is going to be a trash skill. Like the people the people who were running numbers on this, it was so stupid. People were like, well, if you compare it by the math, the old one is 10% better. It's like, bitch, this thing has like 3 times the AoE. What do you mean? You can see in the footage that it's completely different to what it was before. I don't know. The
I'm kinda
Meteor
with you there,
Fantasy,
Raiz.
I agree with you. I would prefer for it to be way juicier, and especially if it had an Ignite component.
Yeah.
But it's most definitely not going to be like a trash skill. Not at all. Even
It's
old
gonna be
Firestorm
fine.
wasn't a trash skill.
Well, no, Old Firestorm is good and has use. It reminds me a bit of the Incinerate thing. I know Nuggy's complained about this a lot, but they've kind of killed 2 identities with 1 rework because it no longer has the old duration stacking identity. And now, because we have this as a Meteor skill, we won't get a Meteor skill because they just made them. So it doesn't fill either fantasy, even if it does turn out to be like a really good build, like Raiz is maybe saying. It doesn't.
No,
really...
Raiz is in the denial stage of grief right now. That's what's happening.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
No, I think you're in the Reddit outrage stage right now. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't think it's
denial.
I think it'll be okay, but like...
Call me a Redditor.
I mean, you're calling it trash. I don't know.
I never said it was trash.
Okay, I can be a bit extreme. I think, in all honesty, it will be average, but I don't.
I think it will be slightly above average, but
I think it will be viable.
Trash.
I think it will be viable.
I'm sure at like the end of the league, Mathil will play it and kill Sirius with it. Like, see, I told you, Mathil killed Sirius with it. It can't be trash. What are you talking about?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
But yeah, so I will be doing Flamewall memes to me. What about you, Octavian? What's your starter of choice?
I'll be league starting in the Solo Self-Found Hardcore event, though I don't really have the hope of going for one of the early Cyrus kills. I'm not nearly practiced enough at that. I'm more aiming for potentially some of the other side bosses or just achieving some of my own goals, like pushing a Solo Self-Found 100. I've never done that before. And I'll be tryharding by league starting a build that I already know is good, and that got buffed by the patch notes: Archmage, Cremation, Necromancer. Necromancer did get a slight nerf in the patch notes. I lose a little bit of block, but the passive tree changed favorably so that one of the block wheels is within a thread of hope that I intend on using if Cyrus gives me one. Sigil of Power is insane. The Intensify buffs are insane. What else? There's one other thing. Flamewall potentially works with Cremation. If you put it right on top of Cremation, every projectile should get the benefit. And Sniper's Mark is nutty.
Yeah.
So yeah, the build got buffed. It's probably got like 1.4 or 1.3 times the damage that it used to have on no budget at the cost of like a bit of block.
So it's completely dead.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I hate Cremation haters. I'm sorry. Everybody treats Cremation like it's this fucking insane skill that is super meta, but it's not. Nobody played it. Same as like the examples of OP skills for the Gauntlet event were ED and Cremation. I play Cremation and Terrence played Cremation. Literally nobody else in like the top 500 in the Gauntlet. It is getting a lot better, but it is definitely like to anybody that's like, oh, I saw somebody post that Cremation's boring. It's not. It's fun. It's interesting. It's getting juiced up. You should listen to Octavian. I'm on the Cremation train now too.
The Intensify changes are massive for it because it actually benefits positively from both of the Intensify effects. Obviously, the more multi is nice as you gain Intensify stacks, but shrinking AoE is huge for your single target. And if you pick up the 4th Intensify node on the tree, you shrink your AoE even more than you used to, which means you're going to get overlap for almost every single projectile from your geyser.
I was on Quinn's stream. I tuned in for like literally 3 seconds, and he was looking at some precision gem that lowers your and your allies' AoE, and he was like, "This is the biggest trash ever. This is so terrible." I'm just like, "Oh, okay." I'm just like, "Okay, see you later." Like lowering your AoE, it's juicy. You should love it.
Cremation's
It's
great.
why people don't know that Firestorm is going to be clearly the best skill in the entire game. Okay.
Yeah. Also, Ball Lightning is buffed due to that.
Yes. Man, Ball Lightning got nuked. Slight nerfs. By the way.
Yeah.
Didn't they do a slight nerf last patch as well? I can't remember what it was, but I feel like whenever GU says they're going to nerf something slightly, they just kill it. Well, Ball Lightning's not dead. It's still good. But
yeah, they made it nice.
But Cremation was actually my choice to go for before I saw how crazy Flamewall was going to be. But like with those numbers, I was like, I have to do that. I started Cremation last week and had a lot of fun with it.
Can you elaborate on that, actually, the whole Flamewall thing? Because as much as I understand that the damage is nice, like, how do you clear with this thing? It seemed kind of junky.
Okay, so there's a few different... Okay, so first off, it's got 2 mechanics since there's some confusion on it. When you drop a Flamewall onto something, it has its own effect, which at level 20, I think, is 450 burn. So that's the Firewall burn. And then it has a secondary effect, which is 1,850 or something.
Yes.
The secondary effect, if you shoot a projectile through the wall, the full burn is transferred, which is nuts. When they originally showcased it, I think they said like a portion. At some point, they must have changed their mind. So you've got a few ways that you could spread it. So you could just get enough AoE that you drop Flamewall on top of the mob, and that will do it. Or you could shoot through it with a fireball if you're doing a traditional like fireball Flamewall. Some people have said some memey things where you use like freeze pulse to cover it across the whole screen, or like tornado shot. It just depends how you want to do it. Yeah, Spark could be another option. The only downside I could see of Flamewall is it has a limit of 3. So you can't have more than 3 out at once. Are you back, Ziggy? You good? All right, cool. We'll just have to put up with Ziggy dropping in and out throughout the episode. But because of the way the mechanics work of it, even though it has a limit of 3, because the secondary effect has a 2-second duration, you can just drop it on a pack, and then if they walk out of it or like it gets desummoned, it doesn't matter because that dot is on there. So yeah, it's really solid.
So what are you specifically thinking about using?
I want to see if I can get enough AoE to do just Flamewall. It also depends on if I could very easily see Flamewall being one of those abilities that doesn't interact well with like any form of elevation. You know how some skills just like get eaten up on stairs or like doorways? I could definitely see that with Flamewall, where it's like it can't go up a ledge. Yeah. So I'll try and build it pure. It will be terrible to level with because you won't get any DPS supports till Weaver. So don't try and level as Flamewall until at least like end of Act 2, start of Act 3. But otherwise, yeah, just Fireball, Flamewall is safe, and then experiment when you get into maps once you've got some like cast speed and AoE and stuff. And it also has a base cast time of 0.5, which is crazy small. So yeah,
you will have to use projectiles. Imagine trying to clear like blobs of mobs with a rectangle that you can't control the angle of, because the angle will be based on your character to where you cast it, right?
You technically can control. It's a bit jank. Okay, so from all the footage we've seen, I'm gonna have to do some turning. It bases the wall based on the way you're facing, and with the footage, it's like a full line. So what you could do, in theory, is purposely turn your character beforehand to then like go across the screen this way. Now,
you're right to get the rectangle to go across.
Yeah. It requires a little bit of like min-max. It requires a little bit.
Just use projectiles, dude.
Just shoot a power siphon through it.
Yeah, I mean, you could just be lame and use like power siphon or tornado shot, but you could be cool and be like turn.
Just think, if you really don't want to use like fireball or something, you can put flame walls down and then use elemental equilibrium skill that you shoot through it to debuff them.
Well, you can't do that though, because
it adds fire.
It adds flat fire. That's the one problem to it.
Fire.
So if you shoot a projectile through it, it gains flat fire. True. So if that didn't work, then like freeze pulse would have been great as a base example. But yeah, for the most part, like Fireball Ignite was already a really good map clearer. And it had, like, good enough single target if you juiced it, but for a lot of people, it wasn't good enough. So you just use Fireball for the entire, like, everything, and then Flamewall just straight up doubles your damage, so it's fine.
Yeah, you can always just arc them or something to debuff them.
Yeah.
Nugi, you said the maximum Doom was 40?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm just
at least
figuring out my build.
Okay, so the maximum Doom that we know of, it could be higher.
Yeah, there might be like unique.
We don't know if there's like items with Doom on it. It's just on the passive tree. There's 10. That's all we know so far.
Maybe one of the new implicits.
Yep.
On one of the new bases.
Ooh, that would be nice.
Chat saying 45 with an alternative quality hex. Interesting.
Oh, there you go. That's already some. I'm sure there's probably more, hidden somewhere.
I also just want to point out that some people thought this Baeclast was for recommending Leaguestarters to our audience. No, this is a recommending Leaguestarters to Raiz podcast.
I need help, okay? I need to practice.
I'm being
Usually I
inspired here as
decide my
well.
build. Yeah, I mean, I usually decide my build like 10 minutes before. Eventually, I'm just like, all right, let's just do this, and then I just do it. But this time, I'm hella conflicted. It's because of the looming threat of ED. That's really all it boils down to.
Guys, I'm really sorry to interrupt. I have important information though. The PoE account just tweeted and said that the cat's name is Hana.
That is important.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I'd just get that announcement out there.
Yep.
It's a lot better than calling it fucking monocle cat because it doesn't fucking have a monocle. Okay, everybody keeps calling it that. It's a goddamn eye patch.
Yeah,
It's
it
called
is
a
an
fancy
iPad.
cat.
Fancy cat. Okay, I'm with it.
I'm just gonna
I've
throw
heard
this
of
out
fancy
there.
cat.
I don't like the bow tie. It would look
Okay. Wow.
it would look better without
You
the bow
son of
tie.
a bitch.
I'm
out.
One thing I
stay
want
out
to
of this
ask, because I can understand why, from a racing point of view, people are pissed that ED didn't get nerfed because it's been so strong for so long. Do you genuinely think that Essence Drain deserves a nerf from a pure balance point of view, though?
Yes. I think the regen could maybe. I think from what I've seen, the regen seems a little bit much.
Oh, 4,000 life per second with borderline no investment is a little bit much.
Because I don't think the damage is necessarily too high. Like when you look at it, it's more like there's like two factors to it. There's the insane amount of defense and then the insane AoE through contagion. So like I feel like those are like the two main culprits of the skill of its like power right now. I don't think the damage is too high on just ED.
I'd rather target the defense than the AoE because the playstyle of ED Contagion is like iconic and really fun, and I don't know. I don't think it's like problematic balance wise. So
no, but I'm just saying these are the things you capitalize on ED.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
That's what makes it strong. So it's like
I agree with that. But like saying that though, if they nerfed the regen, that wouldn't stop racers from playing it, though, would they? Because it's mechanically just a very good skill.
Well, yeah, but it would make it less of an obvious choice because you're not as safe.
Yeah.
The playstyle changes.
It would open up a weakness in the Cyrus fight in particular. I think like that regen is any amount of sustain that you get for free is really, really important in that fight.
Yep.
Especially if we're talking about tricksters.
Yep.
It just gets so ridiculous, you're always topped off. And then when you're not, ED kicks in. I think scaling down the early game, like what they did with Spellslinger, is like a move in the right direction. The thing is, like, it's not a particularly problematic thing, in its very end game. It's just there's very few ways of scaling it realistically, and it's not balanced around those things. So once you do get like, nice delirium gloves and whatnot, it does get a little bit weird. But then again, they scaled down Spellslinger a little bit, so that helps. I think the top end is fine, and you shouldn't balance around SSF anyway, or like hardcore for that matter. So yeah, just the early and middle. I think if they just lowered the numbers there so that it takes longer to get to that top end, I think it would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Like, for example, last league, I ran Essence Drain as my supplementary single target for my core scare build because of the sustain. So the sustain is really good on it. And I do think a lot of people don't appreciate just how crazy just like adding all that regen is. It's kind of nuts. From that, let's go into the patch talk stuff. I guess we could talk about glancing blows for a bit, because that's been the main thing that people have been chatting about. Who wants to take that first?
Trash. I don't know. I can kick things off with saying that block is a terrible mechanic and should be changed. Okay, everybody was always hating on armor. I think armor is great. Okay, block is terrible. It's a reoccurring problem in PoE. And now that they're addressing it, they addressed it. They didn't even address block. They just addressed glancing blows. The recovery and sustainability remains the same. I don't know. I think it was good to do something, but it wasn't the right thing to do at all.
I think it kind of depends on what their goal was with the glancing blows change. If the goal was to significantly shift the meta, I don't think that this change to glancing blows is going to accomplish that very much, because ED Contagion, as we just mentioned, is really powerful still on Trickster, so you'll still see Tricksters. I'm not sure if they're going to go glancing blows. I'm not enough of an expert on that build, but you'll still see Tricksters, I'm sure. And Necromancer can just go regular block, because even if you only get like 60% or like 60-50 attack spell block, which is pretty achievable with like even solo self-found gear, that's really goddamn good. Like, not taking over half of all incoming hit damage is really strong.
And
you lose
being
out on some
healed
recovery
when you don't take the damage. Yeah.
You lose out on some recovery, sure. You'd have more consistent recovery on block if you went for glancing blows, but just go mind over matter and agnostic, and then you regenerate 2,000 life a second, and you just don't give a shit. Like,
but that's got a massive cost to it, though, and that's a large investment as well. This is like it's like one mod on a shield. It's practically free.
This is true. There are necros, there's like summoner necros that I'm sure will still get like the recovery and block shields and stuff as well. But even then, like 60-50 attack spell block, I feel like people are really underestimating the strength of that. Like,
can I point one thing out? And
regular block is really, really, really good, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna double check it, but I took a screenshot of it because I saw it and I thought this is insane. But I'm pretty sure one of the alt gems for Bone Offering is minions recover another 100 life or something stupid. Yeah, 40% less skill effect duration, minions recover 100 life when they block, is one of the alt gems for Bone Offering. So they've only added a bunch of extra life sustain if you have an alt Bone Offering, which I found kind of funny.
Nice.
No way, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
especially since, as we all know, Necro really struggles with automating Bone Offering. So that reduced duration sucks, you know?
My rip from the gauntlet is like the perfect example of why they just wrongly targeted this entire nerf, where I am virtually indestructible to my Bone Offering dropping off for literally like 0.3 of a second and instantly dying. And that's without a recovery block shield. That was just Bone Offering alone, which did receive like a slight nerf now. But I mean, let's get real. If you were to slap a shield on top of that, I mean, and block in general, it's a 75% chance of you not going to standard. Okay, it's the difference between not taking any damage and taking all the damage. Like, how is that that's why dodge and evasion being an entropy system and those two systems intertwining is so much more interesting and fun. If block were to interact in any way with armor, I think that would make for a much better system. But the way it is right now, it's just been a problem child in PoE for such a long time. And every now and then they scale it down, and then it comes back, and then it comes back, and then it comes back, and eventually Aegis Aurora comes back, and then they're like, okay, Aegis Aurora now, and it's like this never-ending rotation. I don't like it.
Yeah, no,
Do you prefer
Go, Ziggy.
I was going to say, do you prefer in other action RPGs when they do block chance and then have like a block reduction stat, like a block armor or a block protection style mechanic, where you have to build that as well to get a certain amount of protection?
Well, a lot of the other ARPGs that I saw had a cost to block in the form of stun, primarily. In PoE, that's practically non-existent. And also, a lot of other ARPGs are not nearly as deep. Like, the problem with block isn't just the fact that, again, you don't go to standard. It's also the fact that it interacts with, what's it called? Crab aspect of the crab. It's that it interacts with Trickster, right? Like, it goes just so much further. It's just Aurora, and that's where, yeah.
I mean, and even though you need to invest to cap block, there's the fact that there's not the massive opportunity cost like there is with dodge. Like, when you take acro, phase acro, you have to be on that specific part of the tree, and you screw over your ES and you screw over your armor. Like, there's a cost to it, and it's not that easy to cap out dodge completely unless you're going for specific ascendancy or using like Vol Grace uptime and stuff. Yeah.
True.
My biggest problem with the Keystone change is like they specifically mentioned that because of the power of the like recovery on hit block mods, we're nerfing the Keystone. And like in a way, that's fair enough
Yeah.
because the Keystone was very powerful in its own right. But I really feel that was very much for shield builds. And once again, Staves have been forgotten. Poor Staves.
Nope.
Finally,
really wanted
Staves
them-
had something where it was like Lancing Blows was so good
Yeah.
with them. It's such a it felt like such a nice addition to staff builds. And once again, completely forgotten about. Wrecked in the crossfire.
Yeah.
I don't think Lancing Blows is really necessary in PoE. Like for at least for shields. Does it really need to exist? I mean, we were fine before, and people were still going block before. I really find it nice for specifically staves, and even like stuff like rear guard or anything else, like even dual wielding.
Yeah.
You're just adding the line cannot be used with shields or
That
Yeah.
would have been a
Instant
much
block
more
or
block
interesting
or something like
change.
that.
Yeah.
Like the problem with block is that if the opportunity cost of getting to high levels is not high enough, it becomes too good of a mitigation stat.
Yep. And the thing is too that I don't know, even like the block nodes on the skill tree are fucking preposterous. I mean, 3% chance to block spell damage and 10% spell damage.
Yeah,
like
so good.
6% and 15 with another 20 if you've blocked recently. Bulwark is 6% with 15% mana, with 75 recovery, with 75 block. Like, I mean, it's just
Command
absurd. And these
Steel.
are all shield nodes, you know?
Command of Steel is just 75% damage if you have cap block, as well as 4% block chance, I think.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's nutty. Or Arcane Swiftness, a block specific node that has 20% chance to avoid stun and block on top of having another 75% spell
Yep.
damage, 5% cast speed, and 3% block. Like,
I get both of those. I get 150% damage on a min-max version of my build for building the best defensive layer in the game. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, but
I have to build the strongest individual defensive layer in the game to get this damage, so it's balanced.
yeah, okay, but what you're not considering, right, is like when I take Acro, which I have to take, I then get 3% dodge nodes. Yeah. So
you do, in fact.
he's laughing now with
yeah, but does Acro recover your HP?
It really, because I really love dodge
Well, you
based
don't get
systems.
stunned.
Yeah, like the advantage doesn't have the stun thing, but I do
But you
wish
get
there were
stunned in PoE.
there were more interesting dodge systems. It's also one of those things that how do you guys feel about just generally the way that GGG balances defensive layers? Because defensive things always seem to be the things that GG slaps about the hardest. What would you think is like an example of like a well balanced defensive system in PoE? That's a big question.
I actually think that the like it's relevant to the most recent change. I think that the new Divine Flesh is in a pretty good spot. Old Divine Flesh was a little silly. I was expecting them to chop it down by like 3%. Bringing it down by 5 is a lot, but it is extremely potent. It's like one of the strongest defensive layers for life-based builds. So I kind of agree with where it is now. I think that's a pretty well-balanced layer. Rewards investment with a lot of power, but requires a bunch of investment.
I think there's a ton of different things that work really well in PoE. Overall,
Yeah.
the fact that the defensive layering system in PoE is like the most complex and has the most different options that can interact with each other out of any game. Like the closest probably is Grim Dawn, and Grim Dawn is has a really interesting defensive mechanic system, but it's a bit of a mess as well at the same time. But like I think like things like Fortify and Guard skills, defensive curses, this sort of stuff is all really cool and I think well done in PoE. It's just often with like so many of these interacting things that we run into problems where people become completely immune, or they cause a boss to be perma-frozen or perma-stunned or slowed down and unable to move and things like that. And it's just like
so is
edge
then our
case stuff
issue
like that a lot of the time as
automated
well.
defense? Because like all the things that you listed that were ones you like require input from the player, like guard skills, you have to do
Yeah.
something. Fortify, you have to do
I
something.
mean,
Yeah.
Well,
something
that's
that's a
the
bit more
problem, you
interactive
don't.
is typically a bit better. Yeah, some of them still get automated.
Yeah.
I mean, Fortify gets kind of automated, right?
I would
Same as
like them if they
Guard
weren't
skills in a way.
automated. Because like that's what endurance charges are for me too. That there's a cost to it. There's some time spent. You know, they cut down now specifically on it being like widely available. It's a lot more specific to Chieftain. It's still very very strong, and a lot of builds are still going to utilize it for sure. But they made it a little bit better. I would say that it was definitely a much more balanced and interesting defense prior to Call to Arms becoming a thing, though, because now it's still it's pretty automated.
I mean, you need to, for that to happen, the game needs to be a lot more deliberate. There can't be as many spikes. The game, in a game where everything is not automated, you can't have things just having these spikes that you need to mitigate through building having your build correct.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of the things in PoE is that you need to make sure that the layers are correct, so that you don't get, run over by certain things. And then you'll have like some active things to interact with the gaps in your defenses, right? And I think that's pretty interesting, because if everything is just a reaction system to something, I don't know if that's, if that's better.
I think it's fine as long as it's a player reaction and not an automated system, again, like a cast when damage taken. I think we're also, we're getting there with PoE's 2 socket system and all that sort of stuff. I think they're going to be putting a lot more emphasis on player input outside of flasks to mitigate incoming damage.
I mean, we're seeing Frost
PoE's
Shield
in a weird
is a
state
good
right now.
example of that. They've just introduced this patch. What do you guys think about Frost Shield, by the way?
Interesting.
Well, yeah.
I've been way too negative.
Okay, so what do you not like about Arise?
I love it. I think it's great.
It?
I love it because it's exactly what I just said, where it's something that it's player required input to mitigate something that can interact with something else, like a guard skill. It's just that in the current form of PoE, that's not how this is going to work. People are going to put it down to face tank shit. That's it. Like, it's not going to be like a one input sort of situation. And I don't know.
I mean, it's like a preemptive thing. The whole thing is set up to be preemptive, because it needs to soak up energy shield for preparing for big incoming damage, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
the
Frost Shield specifically.
To me, it's just a big layer of defense right now that I think will work really well in the future. But right now, it's something that we just don't need. Like, it's just bound to create even more broken things, It's like a molten shell is 10k HP. You put this down on top of it, It's just like a lot of stacking. People are face tanking Awakener 8, with just endurance charges and like cannot be corrupting blood thing. I mean, that's the last boss in the game, Like, I don't know. Do we really want more things that just put down a thing on the ground and you become practically invulnerable? It's a little too early. I think eventually those skills, though, are going to be outstanding.
I think that comes down to like a philosophical choice as well, because there are some players who feel like if your character is set up enough, you should be able to face tank every single ability, whereas a lot of people be like, no, this should just kill you. So I guess that just depends on like where we fall. Do you want the end game boss to just be like, you cannot take this hit, or do you want it to be cheesable?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, that's something that was interesting that Quinn brought up when I was watching his stream. He was talking about stuns. And to me, it doesn't make sense that with a stun, you can completely trivialize a mechanic. But to him, it totally does, where you can just perma-stun a boss and just dies, and it's impossible for it to do anything. And I think both takes are valid. Like, if that's the way he would want the game to be, I think it works. I don't know if GGG agrees with that, because they've been really nerfing that, but maybe eventually it's going to be something that they're going to work into PoE.
Before we move on, just out of interest, like, of the 5 of us, which of those 2 do you lean on?
Wait, what did you say?
Just before we move on, out of us 5, do we prefer the you can trivialize system, or do we prefer the no, there are some things you just cannot get hit by because you will die?
I think with enough investment and time into a build, you should be able to trivialize pretty much all the content in the game, except, maybe the all 3k plus or something, but even then you just do the off-screening builds. I'm not saying you should be able to with like a 10x build, but if you have like 400x invested into your build, yeah, I think it's fine if you can stand in Cyrus storms. You did it. Good job.
I look at it from the other direction. I like where you can get away with a lot less if you're good at the game and interact with the mechanics actively, where rather than focusing on like the fact that you can completely trivialize content with enough content, but with enough like building and investment and whatnot. The idea that if you're like really good at the game, you can have a lot less damage or have a lot less defense and really get away with it and make that shine.
That's fun.
That's the kind of this is what I like to see in PoE. I mean, I think we have that to a pretty good extent as well, because I mean, you see this with the Mathil effect a lot in the past, where he's had builds that got away with a lot less defenses because he's really fucking good at the game, and he's like very good at engaging with those mechanics and the boss mechanics and really had them down and stuff like that.
There was go ahead, Raiz.
Oh, I was just surprised because a lot of people mentioned D3 in the chat, and I could not disagree more. Because like D3, like they wanted PoE not to become D3 when you were talking, Octavian, and to me D3 is like the opposite of that, where in PoE, the longer you play and the more you invest, the more likely you are to face tank a lot of things. Well, in D3, the less likely you are. Like you just get one shot by everything. It's like playing Delve with just 1 HP. Like anything just obliterates you immediately. But I think, that works in both games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I want it to be like. I think for the majority of players, Cyrus 8 is and should be a challenge and one that you have to mechanically rise to be able to beat. But if you want to invest your entire league progression into one build and you want to make the tankiest build and you want to throw hundreds of exalts at this build, you want to get tons and tons of ES and heck loads of regen, then sure, stand in Cyrus Storms. Like at that point, it's probably months and months into the league. I don't think you're really like breaking anything balance wise.
This is why you say these new skills are like pretty unnecessary in current PoE, and I kind of agree with you when you're looking at those builds that have reached that point where they're starting to trivialize content. But this is why I like those skills now, because they are more tools for people who can push a build that has less further. Because if you are using these skills well, your build isn't there yet. You don't have gear. You have really terrible gear, but you've got new skills that you can play with that give you a bunch of extra defense, offense, utility, things like that with good positioning, good place. I'm really excited to see all these new positioning based skills. So I think they represent that the toolbox.
I'd agree with you there, Ziggy. What about you, Niggy? You've been quite quiet.
No, I think every time I'm trying to talk, it's like I don't get a word in. It's okay. I think people kind of try and deduce it into one or two boxes too much. I think I like the idea of being able to specialize and make something really good at something. I think too many builds are really good at Cyrus right now. I think it's just like they're just too good at it. I think it's okay that you can trivialize certain things, but the amount of builds that just either like one shot the thing or stand in storms or stand in everything is too much. Because
Do you think it's more of a problem with Cyrus or like the balance of builds and stuff?
A bit of both.
Because the same problem is less present for like Uber Elder, I think.
Yes, and one of the reasons why Uber Elder is good design is because it messes with certain mechanics. So Uber Elder messes with your resistances because it penetrates it. It's like a unique thing to that fight. Whereas if that was on Cirrus, you would not see people just standing in the beam as much, because the damage would be near unmitigatable to the extent that we do it right now, because it's breaking the thing that players are able to capitalize on, which is the resist. So that is one thing. That's why I like the Uber Elder meta in terms of like bossing more. Like one could argue like maybe it was not attainable enough to like get there and all that, but I think the difficulty was really good. Then we got a lot of tools and we have way more damage. I feel like damage has gone up by so much in PoE, and I don't mind that we get a lot of damage, but I think we've just gotten too much. At least if you want the boss fights to be meaningful at a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good. Layered mechanics are fun. Layered defenses are fun. Active defenses are fun. High damage is fun. Like all these things are fun. There's like, I don't know. It's hard to deduce it down to one thing and say, I want that.
Yeah.
Because it's such a complex thing to get everything right.
I mean, there's just such a big difference between skills too in PoE and
Yeah.
all of that, and how a build can interact with skills. I mean, Trickster highlights that pretty well, where it's like, well, I can save like 20, 30, in some cases 40 passive points by just going Trickster, and it's like, okay, that gets pretty out of hand. But then you compare that to, I don't know, a Slayer in the current meta, where it's just like a pretty basic setup. Then yeah, I mean, how do you compare the two, right? But both should be similar in power. I mean, but then you could argue that if one thing isn't totally overpowered, then nothing's ever fun. So I don't know, because you can't play the totally overpowered thing.
Yeah, I think in regards to like Cirrus and Cirrus 8 and all that, I can see the argument for it being, so that's like more of a questline boss, I would say. It's not like an optional uber boss. And so therefore it should be more, it should be tailored in a way that you don't block anyone from actively engaging in that fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you could.
Yeah, in the way that like, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just like, you couldn't design it in a way that you had to be a specific like element, for example, to beat the fight, because the whole quest and point of the game is to go through the conqueror system. Yeah, that's fine.
Like Itziri with the reflect, preventing certain builds from just doing Itziri.
And I think Itziri is a very well designed fight. You know, it kind of stands the test of time. And I think those kind of like side bosses like function really well. I mean, all is really interesting. If you go down, do all with like the highest cold damage mitigation build, it'll feel so much better than someone who isn't, because he's like pure cold.
Yeah, he's almost pure attacks as well. If you do like high cold res, dodge, evasion, raider, something, then he just doesn't ever touch you.
And I think it's okay that certain builds can capitalize on their strength and then just feel like they're so powerful against that. And then they'll do something else and they feel like they're just getting mowed.
I think Cirrus also is balanced around the fact that you take extra damage from the beam, which is a problem, because in a lot of the other fights, like you get zoned, right? That's the whole point, that you get locked into an area.
Yes.
That's the case in Uber Elder, in Itziri, right? You get zoned by storms. In Uber Elder, you get zoned by a lot of things. The bulls inside of the big black circle situation, you know? But like with Awakener right now, the way you approach it is that if the beam's going on, you're just safer to face tank the beam. So maybe if the spinning thing, instead of balancing around it doing more damage to you, it would just slow you down so that it would enable the beam to actually like kill you and then make the beam a lot more threatening. Yeah, maybe that would work better. He doesn't really have a whole lot of attacks. Like Atzuri has like 20 different attacks. Uber Elder has like 20 different attacks. Even Shaper has like 4 attacks. Awakener has what? I mean, he's got the maze, he's got the corridor, but those aren't really like real mechanics. They're not attacks, right? They're sequences. His only attack is the beam and auto attack.
I think part of the problem with Awakener is what you just hit on there with the beam and the maze, where they're really cool mechanics that you learn after you've fought him twice, and then you never really have a problem with after that ever again. Like, it's not like
unless it bugs out and is invisible.
True, yes. Bugs aside, you know, I've been stuck in my fair share of walls and stuff, but bugs aside, unlike Shaper's orbs or the icicles in the Elder fight, it's not something that's dynamic and can fire from over here or over there or over here. No, like when you get into a maze, you're now doing the maze portion of the fight. You are teleported here. Do the maze. Now we can keep doing the boss fight. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like it's slightly different every time.
It's also not the most intuitive fight. I think that's one thing that ZiggyD has done very well with most of their bosses. Like, aside from the reflect on Itziri, like that's not a very intuitive mechanic. Itziri is very much, you can tell what killed you. Same with Shaper. Shaper, I think, is one of the most well-designed fights I've done in any game, because it's just like so clear what it is that's going right and going wrong. Elder the same. Whereas with Awakener, like when he's up in the air and stuff, they're like not knowing you've got to walk under him to get him to come back down. Like the first time I did Awakener, there's lots of like, I'm just running around. When's he gonna finish just doing stuff? Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. So instead of Harvest, we talked about bosses.
Yeah. What do we have about Heist?
Well, we're gonna get in Heist in a second. We've got a huge league thing coming up, but someone mentioned Cirrus. One thing I did want to ask, and I think this is relevant because Raiz, whenever we have a league episode, he's always like, "I'm not that excited for this league, but I'm really excited for this patch because this is the best patch." He says it like everyone. Do we think that a league needs to come out with a huge meta shift? Because this league had a very short set of patch notes, and people have been kind of bummed out on that. Do we feel like every league needs to have huge things, or are we fine with just this is the league and you get nothing much else?
Well, as somebody who always complains about the league, I thought Harvest was that, honestly, in my impression. It was a huge shift. It enabled a lot of things. It was a very different league to everything else. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy it, but undoubtedly, partially the reason why it's not coming back in its current form anyway is because, yeah, it was so much different from the core game. So
I think
don't know if we need
people
that
are underselling this league so much.
Ooh.
There's so many alternate skill gems that people are going to play around with, and when people figure out the different builds you build around a certain thing, everyone's going to buy up that gem and they're going to build it. And the same thing with the replica uniques. There's how many extra uniques, and they pretty much all seem interesting in some way. Most of them.
The new base items too.
Yeah. There's so many things that people just undersell, and this is not part of the meta, where items is one of the biggest things in any PoE meta.
It's something like 3 experimental bases for each weapon type.
Yeah,
there's a lot of experimental bases.
So you're agreeing with me then?
That
you're not excited for the league. You're excited for the changes. Wait, but the actual league mechanic.
Yeah. I think the league mechanic is going to be fine as well. I mean, the league mechanic, I think it's going to be fun.
It's like saying Delirium was a good league because of Cluster Jewels. I don't know. I see Cluster Jewels the same way.
Delirium mechanic was fun.
I like
No, I can see that. I wouldn't tie Cluster Jewels to Delirium, even though it is now, the same way I wouldn't tie the new skill gems and the alternate gems to Heist specifically as a league mechanic.
But so there was the question of, does a league need to come out with a big meta shift? And the Cluster Jewels did create a big meta shift.
True.
In the same way where I think, so we look a lot on this with the idea that the patch notes didn't encourage a lot of meta shifts. However, we got all the new gems, and there are some very cool new active skill gems and new mechanics. They might not fill it might not take up a lot of space in the patch note, but it takes a lot of space in the game. And so does all the, when they write 890 next to a unique, and that doesn't fill a lot, but it does fill a lot in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I spent a lot more time reading the 800 alt gems than I did reading the patch notes, that's for sure.
Same. Level 4 enhance is going to be more expensive in Heist.
Oh, yes.
There's some really cool utility skills that scale really hard with quality. Berserk has one that gives 20% more spell damage while berserking. If you get a level 4 enhance with that, it's 40%. And then you can just go with Chainbreaker is what it's called, the one that gives you rage passively based off your mana regen. And you just almost perma-sustain Berserk if you build that right. Throw that into a spellcaster. Here you go, have RF without the downside.
Sick.
I need to read up on this shit. What the hell?
I'm surprised you're not pogging out on the +2 arrows toxic rain, which is kind of slightly okay.
What? Yeah,
that's
also good. Too? Also good. But it comes at the cost of debuff effect.
Oh no, you
don't
lose
slow
slightly less slow.
What? Who cares?
Yeah, just run aspect with the spider.
Yeah.
Kill him instantly, lol.
That is one thing I will say is I tweeted this out on Twitter. Some people agreed, some people didn't. But having read the 800, there are a lot of really stupid power, just raw, this is just insane. And there's some really fun creative ones. But there does feel quite a large chunk were fairly just we had to make an alt gem for this. I kind of wish that maybe instead of going for 800, they maybe focus instead of, we're going to make one very interesting alt gem for each. And then if we've got some left over, we'll add them in. So maybe having 500 truly unique gems, then
but then
200-300 filler. because it doesn't mean that like if you approached like each alt gem being a interesting one, it wouldn't automatically be better because it can change the mechanic. It's like we've seen some which add conversion or add like they nerf the projectile speed but add AoE. Stuff which is like Toxic Rain +2 or like Flame Blast has like +2 stages. Like that stuff is just straight up better. Like you just use that. But yeah.
I think one problem you run into that, if you release with the idea to do that, if anyone's alternate skill gem is bad, someone's gonna ask, why didn't you make an interesting skill gem or alternate for this specific one?
I mean people are already saying that now though.
I guess, are they?
Yeah, there's a couple of skills which didn't really get anything much of interest.
Glacial Hammer got like the least interesting ones, and I'm so sad about it because it's not like Glacial Hammer was doing real well before.
There you go,
Nugi. Like
there you go.
10% increased attack speed or 20% elemental damage. Here you go. It's just crying in the fucking corner without anything cool.
Okay. You convinced me on that. Maybe this should just have gone, less is more.
Maybe it's the reward structure or something. I don't know. The same way, because I had the same impressions for cluster jewels, and I was like, but I mean, they have to implement some things that wouldn't really apply to the game as a whole, because then you need like a pool of mods and all this sort of stuff. Maybe this somehow interacts with the reward structure, because I can't see how it would be otherwise. I mean, how much are we? If you were to put a percentage on like good to useless gems, how much is good and how much is just like,
well, a lot of the boring ones are stuff like just gains 5% pen. Like there are very few that are useless. Like they're all useful in some way. It's just you need to keep in mind the way that Grand Heist works. So you complete your Grand Heist, you pick one of 5 rewards. There could be like multiple gem cases as far as I'm aware, but it could be like a gem case, replica unique, experimental bases. I don't know if we've seen if there's just like raw currency or whatever, and you see like what gem is in the gem case and you pick it. You don't get like 10, you get 1 gem. So yeah, there's like 800 of them. So it's one of those things where when some of them are just kind of bland, it would kind of suck to be like, oh, what am I gonna pick? Am I gonna pick the experimental base, which is really fun? Am I picking the replica unique? Or am I picking Glacial Hammer has got 20% like freeze chance or whatever it is? It's like,
see, but that's why I think that it is tied to the reward system. Because like, do you really want like a new alternate gem that allows you to make a completely different build every time you do a single wing of a Grand Heist? Like that doesn't make sense to me either. Where you're gonna run a Grand Heist and then you're like, well, here's 3 more builds that I can play, and then you do another one, and then here's another 3. Like, I don't know.
So the
I mean, you need to think about how many gems you would use on a bit, because there are support gems as well. It's not just main skills.
Utility support, yeah.
Yeah, so like think about how many you're gonna use on one character. Like let's say that you get like maybe 1 cool guard skill. Let's say you get maybe 5 supports per build, maybe like a movement. And you're already at like 6 or 7, and then it's not unrealistic they might want multiple of the same support gem. Like I could very easily see people needing like at least 10 alt gems per character.
How many replicas did they say that we're getting in unique items? 90?
90, yeah.
90.
Yeah, then it's primarily gems that we're going to be seeing in the rewards, no?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Well, there's also like generic rewards that we've seen before, right?
Yeah.
There's a really weird one. I don't know if this is a typo or what. Arcane Surge support has an alt quality with Arcane Surge grants 0% more spell damage and 0% increased cast speed. And I'm curious as to whether it's 0% at 20, but if you push past 20 quality, you actually get a more multi, or if they just put in a typo.
I'm sure there are no typos in this sort of thing.
There are a couple of skills that like didn't Ellie hit not get mentioned. I know there isn't one for Portal, and then some got like listed twice. So,
I mean, we've seen the one for Portal on Reddit.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it does also give mana regen. I left that out. It gives 0.2 mana regen. So maybe it's just meant to give the mana regen. and the more spell damage and cast speed are there for no reason. I don't know.
You also need to keep in mind, Raiz, that for any of the main gem stuff, getting level 21 versions is going to be a real bastard. So it's not a case of like you just need to get the gem once. It's like if you're playing alternate Flame Blast and you want the extra max 2 stages, you're gonna need like 5 to then hit the level 21. And
yeah, but that's
if
like
it's you, you're gonna need like 30. You know, so
fuck the SSFers. It's mostly like it would suck if people would be locked out of builds because they can't get a gem on Trade League. On SSF, again, I mean, you commit to a character a lot more than you do on Trade League, I feel. Like you actually, well, maybe not. I don't know. Some people play one character on Trade League and they just like Omega optimize it. Again, it's hard to predict. I'm hoping that it boils down to the reward structure and that it's going to make sense. But if it doesn't, then I don't know. Maybe it won't be the end of the world.
One thing I've noticed is there's like some pretty strange jumps between archetypes and damage types in some of these alt qualities. Like they're experimenting with kind of strange overlaps between things that didn't often have overlap before. Cold to Fire supports alternate quality number 2 has supported skills deal 60% increased damage with poison on Cold to Fire support.
Cold to Fire to poison.
It's not like, yeah, you can do that, but that's not really been a thing that people have done very much in the past.
That's a classic meme. That's a classic PoE meme. They're Cold to Fire to Chaos to poison.
Oh, is that actually?
I made that build in the back in the day.
Of my biggest.
Oh, that's before my time then. Yeah. I didn't realize it was a meme reference.
Cold to Fire to Chaos poison build.
There you go, Ziggy.
One of the classics.
A lot of people knew me from a dual consuming dark occultist Ice Nova build because it was like Poison Nova. Yeah.
Yeah, it's classic. So that's just an old school meme. Sorry, Octavian.
Yeah, I joined in warbands before my time.
There are some really cool ones in there, and there's like some there are some really fun wacky ones. Like I don't mean to shit on the system at all. I think it's gonna be really fun, and I'm looking forward to hunting them down. But I do think it's gonna be kind of insane how many of these gems we're gonna need, and I'm really not looking forward to trying to get level 21 versions of them. Because there are some are really cool. Like there's a Cremation one, which is like it has a chance to explode nearby corpses and stuff. And
well, you never like actually answered the percentage question, but a lot of people in chat were saying 10 to 20% are like build modifying ones. So if it's 900 gems and we're assuming worst case scenario, then we've got 800. Yeah, then we're assuming we're getting a minimum of 80 new like build defining gems with another bunch of other ones. You know, that's plenty for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
That's at least like a month of playing time, you know?
It's literally the shotgun approach. They're just like shoot a bunch of gems at the wall or at us and see what we catch, I guess. See what we like.
But then again, just saying that, like,
I love it.
Using what I said, where maybe instead of making 800, they made 500. It's not like you would remove all the interesting build-defining ones and add more filler. The idea is you would remove the filler ones and you'd have more of the interesting ones. I'm not advocating for Tarke wants to remove any interesting alt gems and only has ones which give 10 AoE. Like, you know. With that in mind, unless anyone has any particular alt gems they want to give a shout out for, they think would be pretty cool, should we maybe get into some of our like league recommendation talk?
You didn't say Spark, did you? Did you just say Spark, Nugi?
Wasn't that a good one?
You're talking about the Lightning to Chaos Spark?
Yeah.
People are like getting excited and they'll be like, oh, Ziggy, you can do Voltaxic Spark now. But that's a kick in the shins. It's literally an insult. Why don't they just fix Voltaxic, man? Why is it still nerfed? It doesn't need to be nerfed anymore. They nerfed it for Reflect back in the day.
True.
That was an insult.
There's also
maybe this is the way that they can see that it's actually not too bad, and they can be like, "Yo, we can buff it again."
So what do I have to make a mediocre build with it to convince them? Do I? I can do that.
Yes.
I'm very capable of doing that.
Perfect.
There's a lot of potential for scaling strike range on certain skills, like really, really far now, because melee Fizz support has an alt quality for strike range, and I think Viper Strike and
I think double strike get I see the
a few of the strike skills
+5.
Yeah, a few of the strike skills get +5, so you could get like +7 with links that you want to use anyways. And then I don't know, get meme strike gear. Make the longest strike possible. Somebody's gonna do it.
I was looking
I-
at Spark, and it's got some good stuff with like extra projectiles, and then also the conversion. But then I see Splitting Steel, alternate quality 3, grants minions 40% increased damage. What?
I told you there's some weird overlaps here. Like
Interesting.
grabbing stuff
Hello?
from different weird places.
Okay.
I don't even know how that works.
I do feel like they're really using this as an opportunity to experiment with stuff that I definitely could see them making at a part of skills or a part of systems in the future. Like, I don't know if this is the best example, but them like testing things like Spell Impale. Like, how scary would Spell Impale be? So they put it on some of the quality gem options. Like you can, there's like Ethereal Knives as a
Bear Trap
chance.
Impaler build with the gloves that make your impales spread. Throw a Bear Trap in a pack. Full pack dies to spreading impales.
Pretty fun. I always felt EK would be like a skill that should impale, right? Like mechanically and
Okay, EK
thematically, it seems like such an impale skill.
Wait, are there any bleed spells?
No.
I didn't see any.
Just impale. Oh, this
No, that would actually
sad.
be good, Rise.
this
sounds
might
cool.
change your league start rise. This is a really good one. That MP
Here we
just
go.
reminded me of in chat. Conversion trap. Converted enemies deal 400% increased damage.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
And for all the Essence Drain boys out there in the race,
As
you can get 100% hit damage with Essence Drain. And your regen is based off your hit damage.
As one of the top 2 conversion trap players in the world.
True.
That was between me and Amy, you know, coming first and second in the
Yep.
We can debate
It's
about
true.
who. The problem with conversion trap is the monsters never hit the enemies. It doesn't matter how much damage they do. You convert them and then they like kind of waddle around confusedly and look at an
that's the
enemy and
problem.
then
That's the one problem.
go to swing and then
One
they
problem.
convert back. Yeah, that's the
Conversion
one
trap.
problem.
It's one issue.
There's also the decoy totem one, which is pretty spicy. It's like decoy totems like explode for like huge portions of their life and stuff. There's some like really cool ones in there. I'm a bit sad because Corsicaro got kind of dicked. Like I was reading through, oh, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. I think Corsicaro is something like 20% chance to inflict a wither on hit, because as we all know, Corsicaro is great at hitting enemies.
Yeah.
And then 20% of fizz converted to chaos, and it's like,
Nice.
bruh. Meanwhile, Toxic Rain gets +2 arrows. I'm like, what the fuck, GGG? And like, Lightning Trap has got a good one. Lightning Trap has got 20% chance for projectiles to return. That's pretty spicy for Lightning Trap.
Have you guys
Whoa, it's nuts.
have you guys seen golems? Every golem got summoned golems have 20% increased cooldown recovery rate, which is a massive stat. I mean, you could already stack tons of it by stacking the unique jewels, but getting a little bit more certainly doesn't hurt.
Okay.
There are some fun ones in there. I would recommend at some point reading them, Raiz. That would probably be beneficial for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking over it. I don't think I'm gonna go through everything. You know what? This might actually be one of those things where I might keep it as a pleasant surprise. You know, where I'm like SSFing and then I see the rewards and I'm like, oh, what's this? Time to make a build.
Oh man.
Rather than know what I could get and then get pissed off that I'm not getting that.
Oh man, look, I got Glacial Hammer attack speed. Pleasant surprise.
Chimera is small. Woo!
Avarice, yeah, the upgraded one.
Okay, so now that we've kind of talked around the house, there's one final thing before we get into the actual league start discussion, and people asked me to talk about it. Do we have any thoughts on the GGG stash tab policy they've just announced?
It's great.
I need a moment to think about this one.
By that he means read.
AKA read it.
I linked it in the thing.
It seems like a very fair middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for them making stash tabs and making some money, and I like the idea that anything that's mandatory for progression in the league will have the stashes, like what they did with Harvest, built into the league mechanic. I think that's fine. And if they want to make, a bunch of rewards for us to collect from leagues that encourage us to buy more stash tabs, I actually kind of think that's fine. I mean, if we're like finding more and more interesting shit we want to put in our stash, then isn't the game fun? Aren't we enjoying the game probably?
I mean,
And
if
generally,
it's
you can
interesting
decide-
items, yes. If it's a case of random currency, like Delirium, I think would be quite a good example. Like Delirium was a fun mechanic, but do we need that many different Delirium orbs? Like you could make the argument that's bloat. Or like Metamorph
lot
with the
will always be
organs. Like the
bloat.
organs are just bloat. Like you're not excited to pick up an eyeball, you know.
I've always
Right,
wondered,
but you can't always. I don't think you can always know whether or not the new mechanic you're making is either going to be exciting for every player or if it's going to feel like bloat at the end of the day. I think that's really difficult. That has to be difficult.
Oh, obviously.
What about like Metamorph? Because they say essential for progression in the league. What's the end point? Like, would Metamorph have gotten its own thing?
Wait,
probably.
it
Yeah,
would?
under this idea, it would have, like all the organs and
Mhm.
everything like that would have had its own stash built into the league mechanic for sure.
Hmm.
Like I would completely agree with Ziggy in the case of like 800 alt gems. I think that's a very good way of making people want to have like gem tabs because you're gonna want to
Yeah.
store all these cool ones, and you're
People
like,
are
yeah,
literally
this is
calling
fun.
me a GGG shill in chat right now because I'm like, I think it's fine if we buy a couple extra tabs every now and then. If I spend like $5 on tabs a year, then I think that's pretty reasonable for fucking 50,000 hours I put into Path of Exile.
I wonder if there was a genuine thought
Fuck.
process when they released the gem vendors, because back in the day when Spell Echo and Multistrike were one exalted orb and non-quality gems were actually valuable and all this sort of stuff, people would have just run around with 3, 4, 5 tabs full of just random gems with no quality, and you would sell them and it would make a decent profit and everything. And like when they got rid of that, people didn't need those stash tabs anymore. I wonder if that actually put a dent in the amount of money. So yeah, I'm with Ziggy on this one. If it makes people buy a little bit more,
Chill.
I'm down with it.
No, I completely agree.
I'm a fucking shill.
The only issue I could see with it is so with the tab affinities, which is coming soon, is they could theoretically they could take the piss a little bit, where it's kind of like I have no problem with buying more tabs for all the cool new stuff we can get if I can also sort to those tabs. But then if you have a situation where it's like you get a bunch of tabs like the Metamorph tabs, which are like 4 slots for every, like, those tabs a bit for me like.
So, just to play the devil's advocate here, as far as the gems in Heist, would the mechanic have been? And I don't want to propose an opinion here. This is a genuine question to you guys. Would the mechanic have been detrimentally impacted if instead of here's a bunch of gems they can drop as rewards individually, they added a new currency or usable item called Facetter's Chisel that you can apply to a gem, and it gives you one of the alt qualities that gem can have at random. And then they make the Facetter's Chisel relatively rare in order to keep the balance. And so if you're in Trade League and you want to get your alt quality gem, you just buy a chisel and use it on your thing, or you buy the gem with the quality that someone else already made.
But then everyone makes the same thing, and then there's no.
It would impact the economy, yeah. There wouldn't be
Yeah, and the rarity.
The
just the general rarity of
ones
everything.
wouldn't be around as much, but it would also cut down on the amount of stash space used. Is that beneficial enough?
You would never get that situation where you find a gem and you're like, well, this is really interesting, I'm going to make a new build. You would never get that if you got like this Facetter's Land style thing. That's what I think the problem.
I think that's way too logical, Octavian. I love Uber Lab. I don't like your idea.
I think it would be a very good system for SSF. I think what Ziggy said is a really good point, because like I've read the list of 800. I don't remember all 800 of them. And without seeing like that gem in a chest in front of me, I won't remember that there's that fun gem I could play with. So there could be builds that I would play if I knew about them. But if I've got this chisel, I've then got to go reference my list of 800 alt gems to then work out what future build could be fun. And I think that's... It's like when you're playing, and then suddenly like a really cool item drops for a build you weren't planning on playing, but because of that item, you're like, oh, I will now think about that build. I think that's really powerful as a system, and you want to encourage that.
So that's worth the opportunity cost then of of imposing more on player stash space.
I would say so.
So at the moment you. I mean, how many of these gems are we gonna have?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a ton. thought like as a
and we're only pulling one of them out of it. So the thing is, most of the things we've complained about in the past is that we get flooded in the map and during the gameplay, right? So we have like all these. This is one gem.
Yeah, no, I think in this situation it wasn't going to be like that imposing on players' stash, but I thought that you know, like this kind of idea is something that's applicable to a lot of different systems. Like if you want to go back to Delirium, instead of the Delirium orbs that Tarke was talking about, you could have had a Delirium orb that when you use it on a map gives you a random Delirium implicit, which
then you can
cut down on player stash space, but would also cut down on player choice in the same that a faceted chisel would. Like they are intertwined to some degree.
I don't know. I feel like we're tiptoeing around the issue. Stash tabs are paid to win. We don't get enough. Just buy stash tabs.
I will use this as an opportunity to once again advocate for the idea that I think players should get at least like a half-size premium stash tab at the start or when they kill like Katava or something like that, to both make it so that everyone's on like an equal footing in terms of at least like getting involved in the trading system, as well as like here's your first taste, kind of give it a try and get hooked on the game because you like get into trading and become more involved in it, as well as I just think it's much more fair, and I don't really think GGG would lose out on sales. If anything, I feel like they'd gain sales, but I don't know, maybe they must have done some market research on this for sure, but
I mean,
still, I would love to see that.
I completely agree, but whenever this discussion comes up, I actually really resent the whole like give them a mini. All tabs should be premium tabs. Like the tab system is outdated as all hell. Like it's really frustrating as someone who's bought like hundreds of tabs. The fact that a huge chunk of my tabs are just like, oh, these are just the dud tabs I can't even list from. Like all tabs by default should be tradable, and you would still be incentivized to buy tabs because you still need space. You still want map tabs. You still want currency tabs. You're gonna want all the special new league tabs, and yeah. Also, one small thing when it comes to monetization, whenever people talk about this stuff, people always say, well, I'm sure they've done the research. I'm sure they have done the research, but GGG hasn't like repriced any of their MTX. Like their model hasn't changed from now to when they first started, like 7 years ago.
Very conservative.
So it's kind of like, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
maybe it's a Pandora's box situation, you know?
I think they're afraid to open that
way.
Yeah. Yep.
What will happen? What's the Pandora's box?
They don't know. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, even the fact that they made this post, which I mean, in my eyes, benefits the players, already warranted a discussion about how tabs are paid to win, right? Like, they give us a finger, we take the whole arm. God damn it! So, yeah, if we start this conversation, it'll just go too far. So.
And yeah,
I can totally see how in their eyes it's best to just stay the fuck away from this issue, even though that very clearly it's outdated, right?
We've been discussing this ever since premium tabs became a thing, and like trading moved away from acquisition and whatnot. Like this has been a discussion since then. I don't think it's more of a discussion now.
Yeah.
Well, it's not much of a discsion, right? I feel like people are pretty unanimous on this. Like we're not bringing out any hot takes. People want more stash tab shit. But at least let us rename them or something.
Before we move on, I just want to quickly say, I will be annoyed if when the tab affinity system comes out, I can only like auto sort the new league stuff to the specific new league tab, because it would just be nice. I'm happy buying like 1,000 more quad tabs if I can then organize, this is my quad tab for essences, this is my quad tab for this or that. Just purely from a bloat point of view, because I don't want to have to buy like an extra 20 tabs with only like 10 slots in each tab individually when I've got like all these quad tabs lying around. And I don't mind if I have to pay to upgrade pre-existing. It's just I don't want 10 years from now to have 400 tabs, because I already have more tabs than I need. I will pay to add functionality. I don't care, but like, it's just dumb.
I think even more concerning than that is the idea that anything will not like work with it, because if you're like, say you have your inventory full of like a bunch of little stuff, and you're like control click, and then it's like goes in, doesn't go in, goes in, doesn't go in, and then you like there's like 8 different things left in your inventory that didn't go in via the auto sort, and then you have to go manually sort those. It'll be more frustrating that those didn't go in the first place compared to the other ones. Like that's gonna make it feel far more infuriating. Mm.
So, builds.
Hopefully they all do.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
so aside from the builds we've already said we're playing, Raiz technically doesn't know what he's playing, so he can say whatever he wants. What's a build that you would recommend and a build that you would not recommend? Because I enjoyed when we did this last time. Who wants to go first?
I recommend Essence Drain Trickster.
Whoa, brave, brave, Raiz.
Wow, I'm inspired.
Okay, and what's
So
to
if you
avoid?
can recommend the same thing. No more EDs.
Oh, actually, on that note, what do you guys think about Crackling Lance?
It looks
pretty
good.
strong.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Would you recommend it as a build league starter?
no.
I usually, I would stay with something more tried and tested that I know for sure is definitely strong. But
I think it's like a higher single target damage arc.
With ramp.
Kind of. I mean, because it's like, yeah, I think it has similar AoE. It's like good, it like spreads, and you can like do more single target. And arc can be used as a starter. I would just make sure that if you do decide to start with it, you go with someone who has experience with lightning builds and that style as like the guy who created the build for you. And then yeah, sure. Or if you have experience before, then you can make it yourself, sure. But
I think it will be worse than Arc because Arc's got more avenues of scaling. So with Arc, you can do. No, let me just explain what I see by this. So with Arc, you could go Archmage Unleash, and that's like one way of getting like really big damage. With Crackling Lance, you have to self-cast it. You can't shove it on a totem, mine, trap, or any of that because it won't gain the Intensify stacks. You have to ramp it. Because of how it works, it'll be very hard to sustain Archmage on it. And I think a lot of people are going to try an Archmage Crackling Lance. Because
I think that's a mistake, yeah. Sure.
yeah, it's going to be like really rough.
I don't think Archmage is a very good starter though.
Yeah.
Unless Ignite. But that's bad now too.
Um,
It's not bad, but it's a lot worse.
Ziz made Archmage build. I think there's a very big difference between someone like Ziz doing a Archmage Crackling Lance and then someone who is playing it because, oh, this is a fun new skill. I really wouldn't recommend that as a league start. Like, that seems like
I agree with Tarke.
Yeah.
Mana cost is... It gets really ridiculous. Like when on a 6-link, we're talking about like 2,000 mana cost per cast, 2,400 without like any big modifiers.
It's going to be very difficult to get to the last intensify if you do Archmage.
Yeah.
How do you think Unleash works with the intensify mechanic on that? Like, will
every cast that you do initiate is where you get an intensify.
So you'd have to unleash 3 times or whatever to reach max intensity. Ah, I see.
Same thing with Spellico.
Yeah, okay, that's not good then.
And I feel like people aren't appreciating the fact that you need to ramp up. I think it'll be fine, and I think if you want to, if someone
you can ramp up and get nice damage out of it.
Yeah, no, you can. If someone says, "Hey, Tarke, I'm playing Crackling Lance in Quiz," and they send me like a half decent tree, I'll be like, "Dude, go for it, have fun." But I feel like it's one of those things where they're only looking at the final number, and they're not thinking about what do I need to do to get to that point. Get a bunch of cast speed scaling, and you should be alright. But yeah, get a lot of cast speed scaling.
They've been pretty conservative with these numbers. I mean, I'm just looking at the gems. I mean, Blazing Salvo.
That I'm not mad on either.
I don't know. It's almost like you have to use a Flamewall with it for it to make a lot of sense to me.
I think if the overlap is like really consistent at close range, then the damage numbers aren't that bad. Like if you're hitting 5 or 6, because it's 6, right? I think you're hitting 5 or 6.
You do 7 total.
It's 7 total, yeah.
7? Okay. Yeah, I think if you're overlapping with like almost all of them at close range, then it's pretty solid numbers.
You guys were comparing Firestorm to Fireball. This is just worse.
Compared to Fireball, it's not that mad. It's the thing which can make Blazing Salvo potentially very interesting is when you then like start crazy adding projectiles and like maybe if it has like a +2 Helm enchant and stuff like that. Pinpoint's weird though because like if you have 4 stacks of Intensify, you lose a projectile with Pinpoint.
Yeah, but it's still more damage. It's like a 58% more multiplier. at that stage.
Yeah,
And then
like
any extra projectiles is still better. I mean, it's still better, and you have better AOE when
Yeah.
you're not.
if
intensifying.
it's a skill where you can realistic guarantee 100% overlap, then I could see it being cool. Like again, if you were to say, if someone was like, I'm doing Blazing Salvo Mines, Blazing Salvo Totems, I could see it being all right. I don't think it'd necessarily be like the greatest thing ever made. I think it'd be perfectly fine. It hasn't got the best
I think
cast
it's-
time. Or go on.
I think it's designed to like fully shotgun a boss, and when you do that with just the base number of projectiles, it's significantly more damage than Fireball, but doesn't need GMP or anything like that for clearing.
Is
Since
it
has an
significantly
automatic
more damage
spreading.
than fire? It's good with added damage.
It's like 200 or something if they all hit. 200 more, 250 more, roughly, something like that. Because it's no, it might be more like 100 more or 150.
I think
more.
it's like this. Yeah, it's like slightly more for every single one hits.
I'll give you the exact number. Give me a second.
That's without adding any like extra projectiles or anything like that. There might be some potential for adding extra projectiles and getting.
That's why you can't have it too strong, because the extra projectile scaling is something that you don't. Well, with Intensify, you kind of have it now with Fireball, so you have like 2 options there.
Yeah, Intensify will help.
So average damage on Blazing Salvo, if you have everything, is 1417 versus, let's see,
1600 and something.
40.
No. We're talking average damage.
Oh, average.
Oh, average.
Yeah,
damage.
okay.
Yep. Plus...
Sorry, I was looking at top end, but it's probably much the same difference.
Stupid.
Nugie's counting.
Quick maths.
It's 1369, so it's slightly more if you hit everything.
Yeah.
You don't have the Ignite mechanic, but you don't really need that. So it's like
And
on single target, like the fact that it's just more than Fireball and it can scale with the, it's an overlapping skill makes it interesting.
And it doesn't need GMP for clear and stuff. Like I think it'll be right. I think it'll be right.
So that seems fairly legit to me.
Yeah.
I really wish they would put just radius on these gems.
Yes.
I don't know why that's still not a thing.
Yeah.
It would make everything so much easier,
I would like that too. I do want to say the formatting of the gem page this time around as compared to previous gem releases is really, really nice. So props for that.
Yeah,
I guess.
That was nice.
I like it. I think it's much better.
With the like spoiler reveal things to
right.
compare differences. Yeah, that's far better than having to look them up manually.
The other thing we didn't touch on, which is cool about Blazing Salvo, which this is what could make it like crazy good, is the whole fork thing. So that when you fork it, it like, so it's ground targeted forking. So like 1 then splits into 2.
You can do that.
Yeah. That was like the one special thing they said about it. So that's like the forking is what could make it like really cool.
It's highly unusual.
Wait, how does the target?
Wasn't that
a different skill? Because I remember hearing that, but there's nothing on the gem itself.
Maybe they got rid of it. I remember they said something about it.
I think that's Shattering Steel or
no, that's Salvo.
That way.
Hang on. Okay, everyone start googling. One
I
of us will get
remember
it.
something, yeah.
Blazing Salvo.
I remember them saying something, but again on Blazing Salvo, I don't see anything.
If Salvo can fork, that is sick.
It's in the original
That would
announcement.
be really, really strong.
If it's in the original announcement, it may not be true, because in the original announcement, it said that a portion of the firewall damage, and now it's the full firewall damage. So maybe they changed it since then. I'll see.
Unless it's missing a line.
It could be missing a line of text. I think I'll try and bring it up.
I mean, as somebody who tried to make an entire build based off of announcements and the wiki, and then the freaking actual in-game game was just different. Yeah, they might have just missed a line. I mean, it's happened before.
While I try and find that, talk about another skill. While I try and find that.
So
Sigil
I'll
of
tell you
Power
the
looks
one I wouldn't start with, Lancing Steel. I don't see it.
What people are quoting about Blazing Salvo says it has to hit a monster in order to fork.
Oh, okay. I'll read it. No, I'll read it to you. Okay. The skill rewards clever positioning, making it well suited to casting by hand or being careful about placement of totem traps and mines. Multiple projectile supports result in more damage up close and a more reliable area spread, while fork lets the mortar split into 2 if they hit enemies, which explodes separately.
That's interesting.
Good for clearing, but not as good as I'd hoped with like ground targeting and having them fork like crazy everywhere. That would have been sick.
But
If
no,
they
but
were
if,
to
if all the
target, like,
projectiles,
arc-
because if we're saying assuming all projectiles hit the enemy, then they all hit, so they would all fork.
So you're essentially saying it would just get a second explosion would be the cause of the fork, or the result of the fork, I
Yeah.
should say. So it would just double the damage if you had one fork.
Yeah, that
Or am I
doesn't.
misunderstanding?
Yeah.
While fork
How
lets
does-
the mortars split into 2 if they hit enemies, which each
This-
explodes separately.
We need to see actual like video behavior in this to understand what the
Yeah.
fork means. Like, does it mean it fires another proj that like spreads a little bit and then explodes, or does it just explode on top of where the other one was, just hitting them twice?
Does Pyroclast Mine interact with Fork? Because it would be like similar. I guess.
I don't believe so. No,
I'm kind of assuming that it would work like Pyroclast Mine, where it like pops and then pops again. I don't know. Except you need to use the fork to pop again. It's kind of weird. Imagine if it would actually like target
The
things
mega
like Arc,
thread
if it
says
would be
extra
smart, it'd be, like,
explosions
the
from
best thing.
fork.
Well, the gem doesn't say shit, so
I mean,
We'll see.
it's easy to test day one.
yeah.
And you get it low level, I think. Is it like level 12 or something? I think it's level 12 gem. When do you
No
get fork?
4?
Yeah, when do you get fork?
Pretty early.
It's fork.
Either 30, 31, I think.
Oh, is that late?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think so.
It used to be
Yeah,
early, but I think
you're
they
right.
moved it. Yeah, it used to be like
Yeah, I think you're right.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we
Just
got
saying
the
28.
trap
These guys.
triple proj one instead.
Yeah.
It shoots in a line, whatever.
I'm really pleased with Sigil of Power. Gain
That
a
looks
stage when you
fun.
spend a total of 400 mana while in there. Yeah, I was really hoping that they're gonna do that and not force Archmage builds to like overcast. Really cool. And 10% increased mana cost. Damn.
And less damage and flat added lightning.
How would they overcast?
Oh my god. No, like, because there are certain mechanics where, well, I guess anything mana actually works like that now. Where, I was thinking maybe it'd be like per 200 mana you gain a stage. So then, even if you were to spend 800 mana, you have to cast 4 times, right? But like this, if you cast once and you cover the 4 stages, so 1,600, then
So you
you're
just
good.
immediately go, oh, wow, okay. So you just
Yeah.
one time and you're good?
Yep. It's the same way Arcane Capacitor works in the skill tree. It's really nice. I like it a lot.
I like
Really
that.
overpowered though. 19% less damage per 20 with 21 gem.
If it actually works that way, then you can easily max it out with a single arcane or Archmage cast or arcane cloak usage in the end game. Like arcane cloak just maxes this even on non-archmage builds sometimes. If you have a lot of mana and you just mind over matter,
That's a cooldown
It
start.
wouldn't work.
that doesn't work.
Yeah, Arcane Cloak doesn't count as mana spent, I'm pretty sure. Because there was something.
It works with arcane surge.
There's something where it doesn't work with the helmet or something. I can't remember, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm just gonna look at the wording on arcane surge to see if it's different. If it is, then yeah, that could be the case. Arcane surge says gain arcane surge after spending a total of 400 mana, and arcane cloak works with arcane surge, so it has the same wording.
Yeah, then that would make sense. Sorry, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
When does the cooldown start on this
Ziggy,
thing?
did you just go talk to Chris off screen? Why are you laughing? What's going on?
Just because not dark.
Oh, okay.
Nothing. Just continue podcasting.
Okay.
I'm curious. I want to know.
Surprised about the lens.
Do you know? Okay, so when you cast Sigil of Power, do we need to wait for the full sigil to like disappear before the cooldown starts again, or can we cast it 10 seconds later again and have 2?
I'd assume you have to wait because you have to wait for Molten Shell to go away before the cooldown on that comes up.
Doesn't it specifically say that though on the gem?
Yeah,
That the cooldown doesn't recover.
Wow.
Yeah,
Maybe it says on here. You can only have one at a time. That doesn't.
This skill's cooldown does not recover during its effect, is what it says on Molten Shell.
Oh, then
Yeah,
I
It
guess
doesn't
the
say
default
that on.
behavior. Yeah, I guess the default behavior.
Wow. So you can permanently have one of these up?
Well,
Is
you're
that
gonna
what
get
we're reading?
2.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get two.
I
You
can
can only
only
have
take one out.
one.
But you can just reposition it,
Yeah.
I guess, and it'll just consume the other one. That's very
Yep.
strong.
I want to know what you
Understanding.
guys think about the whole discharge thing, because I've had a few people send me their discharge starters, and I'm a bit. I think it'll be great in the case of like Armageddon brand, like ignite then discharge single target. But for people who want to do pure discharge, what do you think about that?
I think you can.
Did they tell us what the threshold jewel looks like exactly?
No.
I think on Trade League that you're pretty safe when not going Ignite Discharge. I think on non-trade you're not very safe if you do anything non-discharge without having prior items.
Why?
Because like charge generations is rougher, I think, on the others. I mean, I know you can. So the power charge stuff, I know people will do like Assassin with Stormbrand and Budget and Crit and that kind of stuff, but then generally what you want to have on there as well is like, I know people do what's it called, the Storm Prisms as like starter ones. But I mean, maybe if you have it as just as your single target and you just have Budget and Crits and it's like an AoE skill, that could work.
That's me.
You use it situationally. I could see that.
Just Ignite lol.
I mean,
Just go
Ignite is like,
Assassin.
that's what I was saying. That's the safe route. Because then you can't really fail. Because like you always have the Ignite. But if you do
If you
like the pure hit.
If you go non-endurance charges and you're generating well and your build's not working, just pick up Avatar of Fire. No problem. Become a 50% man. It's gonna work plenty anyway. Discharge seems really nice. Certified, absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's some interesting possibilities for just working it into existing Archmage builds if you want to just have a big nuke button because its damage effectiveness is so high.
Yeah.
Have some way of generating some power charges or something in a boss fight. You just press that button and you'll probably chunk like, at least 15-20% of a boss's health with that by itself. So just throw it into like a helmet with supported by Conk effect and supported by something else. I don't know, hypothermia if you have chill. And then you just, boom, I press my button. You lose, a third or a half your health or whatever.
Oof. Guess I'm not doing curses. Okay. Keep talking, yeah.
I mean, you'd then use another Archmage skill in your 6 link to actually clear, but that could be a nuke for bossing with.
How many builds have you
Archmage.
gone through this podcast, Raiz? Just trying to.
No, I'm going back and forth. I'm going back and forth so far. It's definitely between the. Well, I don't want to do Archmage specifically because I feel like itemization might be a little bit too slow for the Awakener event, but I don't know. You're also less likely to die, so that's nice.
Yeah. I think Archmage is fine. Starter, if it's on a good build.
Oh, I think Archmage is great.
And
It's just for the Awakener event.
Even
Yeah.
in the event.
I don't think it's going to be a contender for winning. No, not for the Awakener event. No.
Whoa.
I think it's fine for like going for.
Wait. We're talking Discharge or Archmage?
Archmage.
I can see Archmage being a contender, but I think you got to be a good gamer. I mean, Steel Knight is going Gladiator again, right? Like, if he sees that as a contender, I find that comparable, Especially if it goes Lancing Steel. It sounds like the best setup.
Raiz, why don't you go Lancing
Pretty
Steel,
sure
cast
he's
on
looking
Crit
at Shattering
Firestorm?
Steel and Earthquake.
Wouldn't that be the best build?
What did you say?
Lancing
Tarke?
Steel, cast on Crit Firestorm. Wouldn't that be the best build?
Oh, that sounds good.
I am heavily considering Lancing Steel. I think the amount of survivability that you get through just like having a little bit of armor and molten shell, I think it's pretty crazy. And then on top of it, yeah, I do think the Lancing Steel works pretty good. I don't know. I think the videos did a really good job of making Discharge and Lancing Steel look like shit. But I
think Lancing Steel did plenty for that one. Like on its own.
Lancing Steel haters. This will age well. In one way or another.
For your sake, I
We'll see.
really hope that Lancing Steel and Firestorm both turn out to be the best skills ever made, because otherwise we're going to rinse the hell out of you the first weekend.
Go for it. I mean, I deserve it at that point. So no, I do think it definitely. I mean, how can it when something's that strong mechanically, you click a button and you're like a walking turret? Like, how can that be weak? You know, it's Winter Orb.
Have you tried main skilling Barrage?
Well, what does Barrage have to do with it? You're talking about like the way it hits things
Yeah,
that it doesn't always hit.
It's like, and you're like,
I can see if like the targeting would be really fucked, where it would release 4 projectiles and like one of them would hit the way Barrage would do in the past. But yeah, that's like just about the only thing that I can see with it. But I mean, they wouldn't do that, would they? Not again.
I mean, you consume all your charges on like the one guy in front of you. I don't know.
Why you just one shot him? Easy. Just run. Just one shot everything.
Right. Just one shot them one at a time. I like it. Great.
No, just one shot one mob, and then the gladiator explosion one shots the screen. Forehead.
Okay, I feel like we're getting a bit brain lag.
Little off track.
Right. One build that isn't Essence Drain, or a build you've already said that you recommend and one to avoid. Raiz, I'm trusting you.
Honestly, I haven't really thought about it a whole lot. I don't feel like there's anything that stands out in particular, which is a really good indicator that we're in a pretty satisfactory meta right now. Yeah. I mean, VD is still good.
You're not wrong.
Everything else still works the same way. I can still see spell slingers working the same way, and with they showed us before, so that one I did see. There's like a 40% higher cooldown on spell slinger, but 40% more damage or something like that. I mean, that sounds completely ridiculous for taking the Chaos Spellslinger into endgame, which already didn't have like a big problem because you can track down to Charisma because you're next to Method of Madness, and the Method of Madness is really good with Divine Flesh. Obviously, that opens up a lot of opportunities for playing some sort of hybrid trickster, so you don't even have to worry about picking up Glancing Blows. I mean, there's many of these sort of things. I don't know if you wouldn't have to anoint like Sovereignty or something, though. I don't think so until you get like items for it. But yeah. I mean, all of that stuff works practically the same. I would like to see some Void Sphere being incorporated into builds, but
I think Void Sphere is could be pretty popular in delving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can just drop it on a node and it'll eat the corpses the way it is.
So, what about you, Ziggy?
I reckon the safest choice from the new skills is probably Flamewall. Like I just think it's simple, it's gonna work. You've got easy ways of applying it. It combines with pre-existing stuff that's gonna work well, and you can do it on a trickster. It's yeah, I think that's probably the safest choice. I think also notable mention for Glacial Cascade, since no one's mentioned that yet. It seems like it's gonna be pretty damn good. I think it was already a pretty good skill, and now it has better interactions with Conquer Effect and not Conquer Effect, increasing AoE. It now allows it to shotgun better, so you're going to get all hits on bosses pretty much.
How would you build it?
If you don't know, expanding the AoE now expands the size of each pulse or each spike effectively, but doesn't spread them out further, which is how AoE overlap skills normally work, which means you can much more easily fully shotgun a boss with it, with increasing AoE, which is what you want to do anyway. So that's really favorable, and it has a little bit of knockback built into it now, which is super cool. So I think a lot of potential there. What to avoid? I think Crackling Lance is going to be good. I worry that maybe for some people's first builds, they might end up finding a bit awkward or a bit underwhelming as a first build. I think once you get like rolling with a bit of gear and you're on an Inquisitor and whatnot, it's probably going to be really, really spicy. But it might be a little bit awkward to begin with, possibly. The numbers look good on it, though. I don't know. Maybe it's just strong enough that it won't matter.
I would say, again, Flamewall, because that's what I'm starting with. Poison BV looks really solid. And you still get to be Assassin and feel special, even though Assassin got slightly nerfed, even though you don't take any of the nerf nodes. And to avoid, I would say, Archmage Crackling Lance. If Ziz made a video on it, ignore it. Terrible vid. I haven't seen it. I'm just going to say terrible video. Ignore that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
it will be really mana intensive, guys. I promise you. Having I had like a 1.3k ball lightning mana cost on a 5-link, 6-link is like 2.4k. Plus you're wanting to incorporate Sigil of Power. I mean, we're talking about like fucking 4,000 mana regeneration a second. Like, you're not getting that. You're not even getting that with a necromancer unless you itemize it like Omega. So
I could definitely see it, like, yeah, once you're a couple of weeks into the league and you're like fully fleshed out and you're getting like 10k base mana, sure, but to league start, hell no.
10k. Holy crap.
Sorry,
that's
I get that.
20k mana. There you go.
Number. I mean, 10k mana is feasible if you play Ascendant, but I don't know if that would be.
You can do it as Necromancer as well. It's tough, but you can. Healthy Mind right above Witch gives a lot of mana.
Yep. Yeah, maybe Ascendant would be best case scenario for sustain. To be honest, now that I think about it, because like, how would you corpse remove with like, how would you utilize Gluttony?
Oh, for a Crackling Lance, I wouldn't go Necro with Crackling Lance. I'd go Ascendant.
Oh, okay.
Like
what do you
use mana flasks, sustain stuff, and you also get to start out of the Ranger starting area as well as being up near Witch, so that gives you access to dodge. You can go Ameacon to stack more dodge out of your mana, and you can get more mana nodes in Ranger. But like the Ameacon dodge setup for a Mind Over Matter build relies on a specific temple unique, so it's not really a starter.
I was tempted.
Pathfinder Hierophant on that,
just
to clear it up.
Yeah. Because you
don't have to go Pathfinder.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
The flash sustain is nice.
Oh wait, no, you do need it, right? Because you don't get any other source of recharge mana. Yeah. True. I forgot.
If it wasn't so painful to level Scions at League Start, like, I would be doing some Scion Archmage stuff with Sigil Power. It's a really good build, just a bit. If you play it, it's like doing like Chieftain Spellcasters. Like, it's great, you just need to accept the first couple of hours of the league are going to feel pretty meh.
True. And you're always going to have to press your mana flask anyway. You're always going to have charges, but
it can actually get to be like one of the tankier builds around, because you get agnostic with crazy recovery, and then you can like cap your dodge and spell dodge basically, and you have a huge HP pool. You get extra damage effectiveness from Mind Over Matter. It's a really powerful build. It's just not a great league starter.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because people get like 3k life on that build, but then like 10k mana. But you've got capped spell block and spell dodge, like Octavian mentioned. But then you also get, the Watcher's Eye, the Scion Hierophant node, and so you end up with like 58% MOM, which means that it's like 142% of your mana is your life. So, a 3k life build suddenly turns into like a 7.5k. So.
The only thing that having that low a life pool leaves you vulnerable to is stuns, because stuns care about your life, not your mana. But
yeah, but you can use Harvest Jewel. Oh, right.
If you do want to play that kind of a character, look up Akane, Akane on YouTube. He only plays Mind Over Matter Ascendant stuff. This stuff's great.
Yep.
What about you, Octavian? Your recommended and one to avoid?
I'd recommend, this is not going to be particularly revolutionary, but League starters are generally not particularly revolutionary. That's kind of the idea. I'd recommend either a Trap or Mine build. It seems like it's going to be pretty good with the mechanic, as enemies are going to set up behind walls on the way out, and so you'll be able to set up your damage, open up the wall, and say, haha, screw you. Just here, get instantly obliterated before I have to deal with mechanics. There's a lot of good traps in mines. Ball Lightning got nerfed decently hard, so I don't know if I'd go for that, though it's still probably all right.
Has anyone ridden any good mine guides recently that you can think of, Octavian?
I wasn't going to shill, but yes, I have made a written guide for Toxic Rain mines that you can find, and through my Discord or on PoE Vault, which is where it's hosted right now. And that one's solid, but I was actually going to suggest Fireball mines with Ice Spear for single target, or the classic Icicle mines with Pyroclast for single target, because that's still pretty solid. As far as traps, Lightning Trap is the best all-around trap. 100%.
Yeah. And what was your one to avoid?
That one's a little tougher. There's a lot of really powerful archetypes right now. there are some people trying to theory craft a pure void sphere build. I wouldn't, right? Don't do that. I wouldn't recommend that. That's a little bit of a meme though, and I'm pretty sure the people theory crafting that know it's a meme, but just in case anyone doesn't, don't. And yeah, Firestorm looks pretty flaccid, to be honest. I wouldn't start with Firestorm.
Unless you're Raiz QC, in which case 100% Firestorm.
That's not what I'm saying, okay?
You said it was the best skill out of all of them.
I will definitely play Firestorm though. Wait, but what about you, Nugi? You were talking about the Doom stuff and all this. Would you recommend it as a starter overall?
Yeah. As long as you pick a good Doom starter.
So if it's bad, then
that's a good way to cover your bases. If it's bad, it's like, well, I said pick a good one.
Pick a bad Doom build. Pick the good one. There's a lot of good ones though. I do think that the Doom stuff will do pretty well, basically with all the different ways you build it. I think it does just enough damage, and yeah, as long as you understand the mechanics, you can make it work for you, and it'll feel good. I think you have good mobility. It should bust pretty well because you can be pretty mobile doing the bust, right? You just pump the two curses, you let them like ramp up, and then boop, boop, and then you just move on.
I love this.
You've had a really good read on good starter builds in the past new game. You're on a roll. There was the Archmage Stormbrand. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying about the ones that you started with, because I do remember the explosive arrow start. For one.
Yeah, that's the one we don't remember. I think for the rest, though, I think
you've had good reads. I think.
Yeah. Generally.
But what ascendancy for Doom stuff? Nugi, tell me. I need to know. I'm planning builds after this.
I mean,
Radar?
No.
Juggernaut?
I think Occultist, Necromancer, Hierophant, Texture Assassin are all pretty good. I would advise against going for like the Pathfinder Poison stuff, unless you have like the best understanding on how to capitalize on like the poison spread and how to make poison builds. I don't know what numbers I'm looking for when it comes to poison. I just don't know. I don't know when I'm like at the breaking point and it's good. So I can't tell you.
For the higher version, are you going like full Archmage or just Mom, or like just getting the AoE scaling, or what?
So that's the thing I don't know yet. So there's you can just go like MOM with AoE scaling. You can go full Archmage. You can go Ignite, and you can go full Chaos. Those are like the three.
I think Poison is like wasting the best mechanics, the strongest parts of the skill, which is the Chill Shock Freeze and lowering resistance mechanic.
Yeah.
Because if you're going Poison, it'll lower the resistance for the hit, but not for the poisons.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they'll still have Chaos Resist for the poison. Then you're not doing anything there. So all of you, like, if you engage with that,
you can use the spare, and that'll give you good clear. Like the clear will be, I think, very good on that build because you'll have Poison Prolive, Doom Blast, and you'll lower the Chaos Resist of everything. Because the thing is, the AoE becomes a little bit weird with Doom Blast and lowering not Chaos Res. Because Doom Blast is Chaos. Hexblast is whatever you'd lower. But Doom Blast is the curse one that explodes, which is just Chaos.
That's impending Doom. Doom
Blast. Let's say you're Occultist as well and you're Profane Bloom, and then you're not lowering Chaos. That's like, however, you are in luck then, because then you have Void Beacon that lowers both Cold and Chaos. So now you can take advantage of both of those, because you could just lower the Cold while having the Chaos for like the general clear with all the Chaos skills.
Yeah, that's nice.
I think one thing that's worth praising about this patch is maybe Firestorm is either the best or the worst or other, but generally like, all these new skills, they're like, there's debate about how best to build it. Like I've noticed that more than any other league with like people have been sending me like builds to review, and I read the thing and I'm like, I genuinely don't know what to say to this guy. It's like pick one of these 5 like Ascendancies and I think that's really fun, Like, when was the last time we
I
had a
feel-
skill this crazy as like Hexblast, where you're just like,
I feel like the most is Glacial Cascade actually, because Ziggy mentioned it, but they really we really don't know how much it overlaps. Like it could overlap 2 times or like 3 or 4 like it does now, or it could do 8 or 12 or 20. Like the number really doesn't say
have that many
anything.
spikes. Like
Yeah.
it's 4 spikes, I think, and I'm pretty sure you'll get 4 with some AoE scaling quite easily.
Oh, but if it would be 4, then unless we're hitting with the last wave, then it's worse than what it was before, I think. No? If it only hits 4 times. Uh-oh. Okay, then that's my don't recommend. If it actually only overlaps 4, then yeah. That doesn't sound good at all.
Like,
Good numbers, boys.
Information on that.
Where did you hear that it's 4?
Because it says, I think, doesn't it? Yeah, it causes 4 bursts. Final burst is 200% more damage and 100% more AoE. So you're pretty much always going to hit with the final burst. It's just whether you hit with the, because you'll probably hit with 2 and 3 and the 4th, but will you hit with the first one? Depends on your AoE scan, probably.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the gem. They explained it. All right.
isn't there like an alt gem
Yeah,
as
sounds like
well,
trash.
which adds a bunch of like 40% more damage to the final burst or something?
What's that?
I vaguely remember reading the alt gem adds something like 40% more damage to the final burst.
Yeah, 20% reduced AoE. Final burst deals 40% more damage.
It casts faster, so it's a little bit less good for mines than it was in the past. A bit better for self-cast. Yeah, that's the thing. It's gotten a bit worse for mines. It's cast faster, but does a bit less damage now. Although the 200% more damage final burst is pretty significant. I don't know. I haven't. Could probably crunch some numbers on that one, eh?
Something's not
mechanically,
right. There's
it's not
no
pretty
way
good.
it hits 4 times. Like how
What
can
hits
it?
4 times?
Glacial Cascade. Because if it hits
Oh.
4 times,
It hits 1 more time
No.
now than before.
well, you could still hit 4 times before. It
Oh,
was
Yeah, with the extra
pretty
gem.
large investment though.
Yeah.
I
I mean, it says it hits 4 times.
mean, it says it causes 4 bursts, but maybe 4 bursts is like the baseline and you can scale that to higher somehow? I don't know. Because they lowered the damage on it pretty significantly. It's like
No,
50% less damage or something.
no, it's
But
more
then
damage.
Is
If you hit with the last one, yeah. If you hit with
yeah,
the 2,
if you hit the last one.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the whole
but-
point.
On the video that they showed, the guy hits with the last wave like once. You know, everything else, he just never hits with it.
Just position better, Raiz, it's fine. It's
Mm,
like me with my
see.
Flamewall, just turn sideways and then cast. It's not that difficult, you just gotta...
I cannot go. I was trying to be nice with like, what's your approach going to be to this? And you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna turn my guy. What?
Realistically, for pure Flamewall, I've got a tree planned out which takes every single AoE node, and if I can realistically just like cover the screen, great. If not, I'm just gonna play normal Fireball and I drop that on a single.
But
target.
does the AoE increase the thickness of it or just the?
Okay, so this is from how I'm reading it. It will gain like are we calling it length or width? It will gain width.
Unit long.
Yeah, it will gain like units, like sideways with levels.
Right.
And I'm guessing AoE will then make it come out this way.
Hoping, I think, is the term.
Hoping, yes,
so?
hoping. I'm hoping that AoE then makes it come out this way. So my idea is, from what I've seen, is that like a level 21, and then maybe some empowers or stuff, and then you would get one long enough to cover the whole screen, and then you just get enough AoE to make it come more this way, and then you get that girth. I'm hoping to get that girth on it. And if it gains the girth, then we're good.
Maybe there'll be a helmet enchant that gives 100% more girth.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
So what you're saying is that you're starting with Flamewall and then you're gonna play Fire Trap.
Or real talk. What you can do is this: you could just shove Spell Cascade on it, because then it's like, and that will cover most of the screen.
Oh, would that work?
Yeah, just
that would be
Spell Cascade.
really strong.
Then you just go.
You'd only have, so that would give you all 3 of
Yeah,
yours.
you'd give you all 3, but you'd cover the whole screen.
Yeah. So you'd basically be repositioning them every time you
Doesn't
cast.
Cascade have a damage penalty on it?
40%.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
But you shove GMP on Fireball.
I don't do that.
What?
You shove GMP on Ignite Fireball. So yes, Cascade has a damage penalty, but GMP isn't a DPS link for Fireball. And it does more damage. Like, it has higher base dot than Fireball does.
Yeah, to be completely fair, I still remember those Caustic Arrow Mirage Archer builds that were pretty freaking good, and the base numbers look a lot better on Flamewall anyway, so I'm sure that you can afford to have a less damage sort of link if it doesn't end up working that way. I hope it does gain thickness, but I don't know. Do you want like a huge flaming wall that just like it's just like 1/3 of the screen, you know?
It's like it
kinda
covers
weird.
like 4 screens, but it's only like one monster away. Like, you slightly misclick and it's like, oh no.
And then you got to turn your character sideways and try and cast the other way, and you miss in the other direction.
Hey,
Your
Drawing
best
a
tip is
casting.
City Square.
to be fair
Just
though,
walk into
my
a City Square and
turns
cast 4 times.
my
Everything's
turn
dead.
sideways trick would be sick for doorways. It's like you get up to the door, you turn over the door, like woof, like through the entire corridor. I'm like, yeah.
I like how he's laughing about this now. Can't wait to
in-
tune in tomorrow.
You
Tune
tune in
before it doesn't do damage
tomorrow
if
and
you
I'm playing
cast
fucking Firestorm. Like, hey guys, Raiz told me this would be good. Hey guys, I'm playing this sick Archmage Crackling Lance build I saw on YouTube. This should be a fun set. I will try and get confirmation about that Fork Blazing Salvo thing. If the Fork Blazing Salvo thing does work, maybe I'll do that instead. Because if that Fork thing works, then that's like insane.
Yeah, it's completely crazy if
Yeah.
it does work.
Yeah.
For sure.
Does anyone have anything else they would like to touch on and or shit on before we wrap up today? Because I feel like we've kind of exhausted our... I feel like we've ran out of brain power quite early on. I think maybe we had maybe like 30 seconds of high level thought, and then we just went into Firestorm builds.
That implies some existed to begin with.
True.
That seems fun.
Got him.
Playing it.
Are we
Wait, what seems fun?
Are we more excited for Heist now
I think-
than our first impressions Baeclast?
Yes, I think I'm having seen more and more of the rewards. Yes.
Yeah.
In order for heist to be exciting, it is pretty fundamental that the things you're heisting are exciting, and we've seen there's a lot more than I expected in terms of like alternate bases and stuff like that. I thought we were getting like 1 for each weapon type, but we're getting apparently 3.
3.
So there's a lot more there, which is exciting. So it means we're not only getting fire, but we're probably getting some other things too. It might just be cold and lightning, but still, maybe they do something else. And so I'm pretty, and a lot of the gems are way better than I was expecting. There's some of them are really, really interesting and actually seem like, well, I actually make a build out of this. It's like, yeah, I want to make a Skelly Archer build. That seems dope. Some of the uniques have been really cool. So yeah, I'm excited for some heisting.
Some people are chatting saying that they're not different. They're just variants for leveling, but it's not confirmed. That would make sense, I guess. Maybe.
Variants for leveling, so there's like a low tier 5, but I guess that would make sense too.
It would make sense for the attack-based stuff. It'd be kind of lame for like wands, like the Ellie Overload Scepter. That you don't really care about getting a...
Yeah, there's not higher levels of that. How would that work?
Yeah.
So that would have to be something different,
Yeah.
surely. Because otherwise, what's the point of having different versions of it?
Maybe you get better Ellie Overload.
It gets better physical damage on the scepter.
Did they say how many bases we're getting?
They give a list.
There's a list, yeah, you can hunt it down.
Got
Fingers
list.
crossed for the Flamewall Amplifier wand, which triples the girth of all Flamewalls.
Very good.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, Tarke.
Yep.
And then you can use Kinetic Blast to
Oh,
proc your
actually, you know
wall.
what would be really fun? If there was a Helm enchant, which is your character always counts as facing sideways.
I think they're.
That'd be good.
I think there's actually a specific base that's made for your build, Tarke.
Oh.
It's called a wand, and you can use it with various different skills, like for example, Power Siphon, to shoot projectiles through the wall with.
He's gone. He's gone. GGG didn't want him to give that the
You
strats.
too much. They took him out.
Oh, he's back.
Discord deleted you just as you were giving the secret strats that you can't leak that, Ziggy. That's That's for you to know and you alone.
It'll have to remain a secret then.
No.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
in that case, since I think we're all wrapped up, I'd like to say thank you everyone for coming on, and we will see you all roughly a week or so into the league to give you our first impressions of Heist.
And if you're league starting with Firestorm, I never said that.
Now he backpedals.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between a league starter, okay, and a good skill. All right.
And if you're playing Hexblast, play a good version.
Yes.
Play a good one.
Very important.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Oh, what are you eating? How long have you had that little? What was that, an omelette? How long's that been there, Nuggy?
This is start. It's not an omelette. It's food. Just call it food.
Go on,
Some
go on.
food.
What you share with the class. What you got there?
I don't know.
Expand.
There's cheese in here.
Ooh.
It's like a human arm.
It's got cheese in it. It's food with cheese in it.
Yeah.
Mm.
What is the containing substance? It's pizza.
No.
It's like a
that's
quesadilla or
pizza.
something.
No, it's like yeah, a wrap thing.
There are 5,000 people watching us decipher what Nugi is
This
eating.
is all staying into the YouTube video, by the way. This is like that's staying there. Oh god.
I don't get what he says it's pizza.
No.
Oh no.
Maybe if they gave. Oh, I can see it fully now.
I guess it is a wrap.